Chapter 1141. The more Xiao Ziqing thought about it, the angrier she got. She muttered to herself, if she becomes a member of the O family, this little bit of remuneration will be nothing. Humph. Xiao Ziqing crossed her arms as she watched Yu Lily leave. This kind of woman is too scheming. Our son has been fooled by her. When O Huijin heard that, he looked at his wife helplessly. At the same time, he felt a headache coming on. He said, Xiao, don't think so badly of human nature. That girl isn't the kind of person you think she is. How do you know? Xiao Ziqing turned her head and looked at him with displeasure. You don't know? That kind of girl is what the internet calls a green tea bitch. She knows how to act and has tricks up her sleeve. She's ambitious and seduces many men with her beauty. Lao O, don't tell me you've been attracted to her as well. O Huijin was exasperated. You're not allowed to watch television next time. If I catch you, I'll smash the television. You're not allowed to browse Weibo or use your phone either. I'll smash it every time you watch it. Xiao Ziqing pouted. She hugged O Huijin's arm and said, Why? It's not my fault. I'm just saying it in front of you. I won't say it in front of her. Xiao, that girl might not be as bad as you think she is. You can try to understand her. I talked to her briefly today, and I realized that she has an extraordinary temperament. O Huijin looked at his wife helplessly. Don't think too badly of human nature. Don't think too well of human nature either, Xiao Ziqing retorted. It's always good to be on your guard. When Fenglin listened to the conversation between the couple and chuckled. The two dimples on his face made him look especially amiable. He said, I think what old O said is right. This young lady has a kind heart. Xiao Ziqing was displeased. She asked unhappily, why are all of you speaking up for her? You know O Ming's situation very well, when Fenglin said. It's rare to have such a girl by his side. Besides, Xiao O likes this girl. As elders, we should do what's best for our children. No matter what, we have to make O Ming feel better first. We can talk about the rest later. When Fenglin looked at Xiao Ziqing with the same helplessness in his eyes. Xiao, you haven't changed at all. You always like to think the worst of people. Xiao Ziqing didn't say a word, but it was obvious that she was unhappy. She retorted, this is called nipping the problem in the bud. When Fenglin smiled and didn't say another word. He subconsciously glanced at the door, and there was a faint meaning in the depths of his eyes. When Yu Lily returned to O Ming's ward, she found that he was still in the same position. She gently walked up to him and walked around him. O Ming was already asleep, breathing evenly. His head was wrapped in gauze, and only his face was exposed. Yu Lily sat in front of him and looked at his sleeping face. She reached out to tuck him in. Just as she was about to remove her hand, O Ming raised his hand and gently placed it on hers. Without opening his eyes, O Ming asked, what was the result? I don't know. Yu Lily gently pulled her hand back. I didn't wait for their reply before I came back. Did my mom scold you again? No. However, it was even worse than being scolded. Chapter 1142. O Ming didn't ask any more questions. He reached out and gently placed his hand on hers. Today is the second day of the new year, right? Yeah. It was indeed the second day of the new year. It was supposed to be a day for family reunion. For an orphan without a home, it was no different from any other day. It must be very lively outside. I was going to take you to Kingstown Tower to play, but I can't go now. O Ming felt a little regretful. It's okay. If I can't make it this year, I'll go next year. There will always be time. O Ming felt even more regretful. It wasn't as simple as just going there to play. He had originally planned to propose. At the busiest time of the year, it would become the most anticipated proposal ceremony. When the Bureau of Civil Affairs was back at work, he would go and get the marriage certificate. But, it was impossible to realize now. He couldn't see anything with his eyes. He couldn't even see her face. What right did he have to promise her a future? His heart ached a little. He released Yu Lily's hand with his uninjured hand and was about to prop himself up to sit up. Yu Lily quickly helped him up and said, "Slow down." Oh Ming's movements were the same, but with Yu Lily's help, it was much easier. He sat up straight and lifted the blanket. He put his legs down and said, "Take me out for a walk." "Sure," Yu Lily replied. "Wait a moment." She turned around and picked up the coat hanging on the coat rack. She helped Oh Ming put it on and said, "I'll help you put it on. Raise your hand." Oh Ming raised his hand and put it through the sleeves. When he finally put the coat on, Yu Lily looked at his lower body. The hospital gown was a little thin. Would it be cold to just wear it like that? "I'll find you a pair of pants." Yu Lily turned around to open the closet. Oh Ming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He asked, "Are my pants dirty?" "It's windy outside. I'm afraid of the cold." "It's okay. Let's go. My body isn't that bad." Oh Ming stood up and tugged at his clothes. "Hold my hand." Yu Lily thought about it and agreed. Oh Ming's pants weren't that thick. Along the way, the wind grew stronger and stronger. Yu Lily took him to the hospital garden, where children were playing. At the same time, the elderly and the hospitalized disabled were walking and chatting in the park. She helped him to a quiet and secluded bench to sit down. The wind today was a little strong and chilly. Not far to the left, there was a little girl who looked about 3 or 4 years old. She was wearing a pink jumpsuit and looked round. She was holding a doll in her hands and ran to the right. Her laughter was a little shrill, but her smile was bright and lively. She shouted, "I'm your big sister, you can't chase me." Right behind that little girl, another little girl wearing the same clothes caught up and shouted, "I'm the elder sister, you're the younger sister. Wait for me." The little girl was out of breath. When she got closer, Yu Lily realized that they looked exactly the same. "Twins?" Oh Ming asked. "Twin girls, about 3 or 4 years old." Yu Lily was surprised and turned to look at Oh Ming. "How did you know?" Chapter 1143. Yu Lily's heart skipped a beat when she heard that. The wound that had already been buried deep was dug up again, caught off guard. Their hands were still held together. If Yu Lily moved a little, Oh Ming could clearly feel the change in her movements. With a smile, Oh Ming said, "It would be better if it were 2 girls." Oh Ming, "Yeah. I'm sorry." Yu Lily felt a little sad and tightened her grip on his hand. "I should have told you at the time. Those 2 children can't be kept, can they?" Oh Ming gently held her hand and said, "It's a pity that they were my first child. In the future, you have to be pregnant with at least triplets to make up for this sin." Hearing the words, triplets, Yu Lily chuckled and scolded, "Do you think I'm a pig? Then let's have 3. The first will be a girl, the second will be a boy, and the third will be twins." "That makes 4, Yu Lily said. "Well, then let's have 4. Anyway, the more the better. I don't want to have so many children. I heard that giving birth is very painful. The pain will be over soon. Just treat it as a needle prick. It's not that simple. You are indeed a straight man. Do you know how painful it is to give birth? You know? I don't want to know. It doesn't matter. Those women must have exaggerated the pain. It shouldn't be that painful. There's no smoke without fire. If it wasn't true, how could they be so sure? It's used to deceive men." Oh Ming's tone was very certain. Yu Lily glared at him and growled, "Straight man." "Yeah, I'm a straight man. If I'm not straight, I'm gay." Oh Ming smiled and gently pulled her closer. He whispered in her ear, "Don't worry. I will be a straight man for the rest of my life. I will want to sleep with you anytime, anywhere." Yu Lily was angry. She pointed her finger at his cheek and said in a low voice, "You are not only a straight man, but you are also a pervert. You are a big pervert. How can you say that about your man? You are challenging the authority of a straight man." With a straight face, Oh Ming moved closer to Yu Lily's face and said, "The consequences will be severe, little Yu. Mr. Oh, this is a hospital. Otherwise, do you think you can still sit still?" Oh Ming lowered his voice slightly, and the last syllable was so low and charming that it made people's hearts skip a beat. When Yu Lily heard that, she pushed his face away and said, "You're injured to this extent, and you're still trying to act like a hooligan. You're so dedicated. That's easy." Oh Ming leaned closer and kissed her on the cheek. "A hooligan doesn't forget his nature. That's a good character." Just as Yu Lily was about to retort, she found that the two little girls who had just run past them were running towards them. Yu Lily's cheeks were slightly hot as she said, "There are children coming. Be careful of your image." The two twin girls giggled and chased each other. The two little fellows tossed the plush toy around, full of energy and youth. Oh Ming let go of Yu Lily and listened to the sound of the children playing. His mood improved a lot. The atmosphere in the park was peaceful and beautiful. However, one of the two little girls, who were running around happily, suddenly stopped running. She stopped, and her complexion became worse and worse. The one in front stopped, turned around, and shouted, "Sister." Chapter 1144. The two children fell to the ground one after another. Their faces were pale without warning. It seemed that the two children were still trembling, and beads of sweat appeared on their foreheads. Yu Lily was shocked and said to Oh Ming, "The two children don't seem to be feeling well. I'll go take a look." "Okay." Yu Lily quickly walked forward. At the same time, a woman who looked to be in her 30s shouted, "Nana, Lily." As he shouted, he had already run over to the two little girls. Yu Lily stopped in her tracks and looked at them. The woman's eyes were red with anxiety. She looked up at Yu Lily and pleaded, "Miss, can you help me? My daughters have congenital diabetes. I have to send them to get insulin immediately." Yu Lily quickly walked forward and said, "Didn't you give them the insulin in advance? Quick, I'll help you carry one. Let's go together." The woman quickly nodded her head. She picked up one of the children and ran forward. Yu Lily helped carry one of the children and followed the woman to bring the children inside. Oh Ming listened to Yu Lily's footsteps and voices fade away. He sat on the bench alone, feeling a little uneasy. With his hands on his legs, Oh Ming sat where he was and listened to the children playing around and the voices of the elderly talking. His mood wasn't as good as it had been before. It turned out that the same scene was a different feeling without that person. The two children were sent to the emergency room. The mother of the children was so anxious that she spun around in circles. Yu Lily comforted her and said, "It's okay. Don't be too nervous. The children are blessed by heaven. They'll be fine." Originally, the mother of the children had been relatively calm. When she heard Yu Lily's words, she immediately burst into tears and choked out, "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have given birth to them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to suffer like this." Yu Lily was annoyed. She suddenly felt that the mother of the children was a little hateful. She didn't want to comfort her and said, "You can't say that. It's a blessing to have children by our side. Science is so advanced now. Even diabetes can be treated. You don't know. Back then, their father didn't allow me to give birth. They came without any warning. During the few days I was pregnant with them, I took birth control pills." Yu Lily was stunned when she heard that. She asked, "This is the after effect?" The woman nodded with tears in her eyes. "Today, I brought them to the hospital to visit my father and to give them insulin. Who knew I would forget the time? It's all my fault. Yu Lily patted her on the shoulder and said, "It'll be fine." Other than that, Yu Lily found herself at a loss for words. It turned out that the consequences were so serious. After about 10 minutes, the child was declared safe and sound. Yu Lily and the child's mother breathed a sigh of relief. After saying goodbye to her, Yu Lily returned to the place where she had just been. Oh Ming was still in the same place. He hadn't left or moved. Yu Lily walked up to him and gently placed her hand on his arm. "I'm back." "Yes." Oh Ming's expression was obviously relaxed. He held her hand and asked softly, "How is it?" "The children are fine." He looked at the time and said, "It's already dinner time. Are you hungry?" Chapter 11:45. That night, Xiao Ziqing and Oh Huijin completed his discharge procedures. When Yu Lily and Oh Ming were picked up, it was already past 9 p.m. However, it wasn't the villa in Xishan, nor was it Oh Ming's apartment. It was Oh Huijin and Xiao Ziqing's home. The house was huge, even bigger than the villa in Xishan. It was even bigger than Oh Ming's own apartment. This was according to Xiao Ziqing's wishes. Firstly, it was convenient to take care of the family. Secondly, it was the new year. They couldn't stay out all the time. Although they were injured, they still had to maintain the atmosphere of the new year. Considering that Oh Ming couldn't leave Yu Lily, Xiao Ziqing cleaned up a guest room and let him stay in. Oh Ming hadn't showered in the past few days. He didn't even change his clothes. His mental state was much better than it had been 2 days ago. As soon as they got home, Xiao Ziqing personally went to the kitchen to cook. After Yu Lily accompanied Oh Ming back to his room, Oh Ming gave her a gentle push and said, "My mom is going to cook. You go help in the kitchen." Is he asking me to ride on his coattails? Yu Lily felt a little strange, but she knew it was only right. Apart from her relationship with Oh Ming, she was a guest in the Oh household. She couldn't possibly expect the host to serve her well, could she? There was nothing wrong with having some self-awareness. Yu Lily walked to the kitchen and volunteered to help Xiao Ziqing wash the vegetables and cut the meat. After she walked in, she didn't say a word. Xiao Ziqing glanced at her and didn't say anything. She lowered her head and continued with her work. After the ingredients were processed, Yu Lily took the initiative to boil a pot of water. She placed it on the gas stove and turned on the fire. "Do you know how to cook?" Xiao Ziqing asked from behind. Her voice was emotionless. However, Yu Lily could clearly hear a hint of disdain in his voice. She didn't know if it was an illusion or if it was real, but she was already used to it. Even if it was real, it didn't matter. Nodding her head, Yu Lily continued, "In the past, Oh Ming didn't like to eat breakfast. Sometimes, he would even have lunch casually. He would often have stomach pains in the middle of the night, so I learned a few tricks." "When did you start learning?" Xiao Ziqing was behind Yu Lily, so she couldn't see her expression. This time, Xiao Ziqing's words were a lot calmer. Yu Lily couldn't guess what she meant by that. Yu Lily was a little scared, but she didn't dare look back. She replied, "About 6 or 7 years ago. After I learned how to cook for him, I cooked for him for a long time. It shouldn't be too bad." Xiao Ziqing stopped talking and looked at Yu Lily's back. She had a whole new level of respect for the girl. Could it be that this girl knew how to cook for her son? Humph. At least he knew how to behave. He knew to come to help and to show off. Although Xiao Ziqing knew her motive, she didn't feel as disgusted as before. Perhaps it was because of Old One and Old O's words in the afternoon. "Alright, I'll go buy some fruits. If you can do it, you can do it." Xiao Ziqing didn't stay any longer. She turned around and walked out. Yu Lily didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This woman is really rude. But, Did this mean that he had started to change his opinion of her? Chapter 1146. When Lily finished cooking the first dish and covered it, Xiao Ziqing returned with the fruits. Xiao Ziqing was washing the fruits at the back, and Lily was cooking the soup. Neither of them spoke. The atmosphere wasn't awkward or tense, which was beyond Lily's expectations. When the dishes were ready, Lily brought them out and called out, "Auntie, can you ask Uncle to come out for dinner? I'll bring Ming out." Xiao Ziqing didn't respond or make a sound. She just sat on the sofa. Lily knew that Xiao Ziqing had a problem with her, so she didn't wait for her response and went into the room. When Ming heard the sound, he knew that she was back. He asked, "How is it? It's time to eat. Let's go. Did you make it?" Ming could hear the nervousness in his voice. His uninjured hand was holding Lily. His palm was sweating. Lily smiled and gently patted his hand to comfort him. "Yes," she replied. "Yes. Did my mother say anything?" "She said that if I could do it, she would do it for me. She went to buy the fruits." When he heard that, Ming's tense mood immediately relaxed. With a chuckle, he lowered his voice and said, "My mother is used to living a carefree life. She hates cooking. If it weren't for the holidays and the servants going home early, she probably wouldn't cook." More importantly, Xiao Ziqing's cooking was terrible. But, Ming couldn't reveal his mother's secret. "I see," Ming said. It was no wonder that Xiao Ziqing didn't stand on ceremony and let Lily take over. But, this was also an opening for her to change Xiao Ziqing's opinion of her. She had to do this more often in the future. She led Ming to the dining room. Huijin and Xiao Ziqing were already seated. When he saw them, Huijin said, "You're here." "Yeah." Lily responded and pulled out the stool opposite Xiao Ziqing. After Ming sat down, she went to wash her hands and took a wet napkin to wipe his hands. It was a small detail that Xiao Ziqing and Huijin noticed. The couple picked up their chopsticks almost at the same time. Huijin said, "Let's eat. It's a little late today, so don't eat too much. We'll take a walk later before going back to the room." Of course, she was referring to Ming. Lily nodded her head naturally. She didn't think there was anything wrong with it and replied, "Okay." Xiao Ziqing poured a bowl of soup for Ming and then lowered her head to eat. Ming's left hand was injured, but his right hand could still hold things by itself. Lily placed the bowl of soup in his hand and whispered, "Be careful. It's a little hot. Don't spill it." Ming finished the soup in a few gulps. "Did you make eggplant? I want to eat eggplant." "All right." Xiao Ziqing took a bite of food and subconsciously looked at Huijin. Xiao Ziqing noticed that her husband looked equally surprised, so she lowered her head. "I didn't expect it to taste so good." Compared to what she did. It was still a little lacking. Lily didn't notice the subtle changes in their expressions. She was too embarrassed to take the food and didn't dare speak. Even when she spoke to Ming, she kept her voice low. Would such a wealthy family be very cautious about the rules of not talking during meals or sleeping? Chapter 1147. Lily obediently fed Ming and ate a little at the same time. Huijin and Xiao Ziqing were both full. Xiao Ziqing wanted to come over and ask Lily to eat, but Lily politely declined. After the meal was finally over, Lily led Ming to the sofa to sit down. After cleaning up the dishes, she turned around and took Ming out for a walk. It was late, and the wind was strong. Huijin and Xiao Ziqing lived in a villa that was rarely seen in the city. The surrounding area was bustling, and there were many people walking around at this hour. It wasn't quiet. After walking around with Lily, Ming felt a little sleepy. He hadn't slept well for the past few days. Dark circles had formed under his eyes. When he heard Yu Lily yawn, Ming said, "Let's go back." Okay. However, there was no lack of neighbors who knew Ming. A middle-aged man about the same age as Huijin saw Ming and walked up to him in surprise. "Xiao." When Ming heard the voice, he recognized the person who was speaking. He called out, "Uncle Xiao." When Uncle Xiao heard Ming's response, he finally dared to walk up and yelled, "I thought I got the wrong person. I heard that you were in a car accident recently. I didn't expect you to be so badly hurt." Uncle Xiao shook his head and walked up to Ming. What's wrong with your eyes?" If there was one thing that Ming was most concerned about and regretful about during this trip, it would be his eyes. Yu Lily was afraid that he was in a bad mood, so she quickly pulled him over and said, "Ming is injured. He can't see for the time being, but it's not a big problem." When Yu Lily said that, Uncle Xiao finally noticed her. When he saw her face, he felt very comfortable and asked, "She is my fiancée." "She's here to take care of me," Ming said. "Fiancée." Yu Lily couldn't help but look up at him when she heard those three completely unfamiliar words. Her heart suddenly raced. Even if she had 10 hearts, she would never have expected Ming to say that. Fiancé? Only when both parties' parents agree and they are engaged can they be called fiancés. What kind of fiancé is that? But, in front of an outsider, in front of an elder, Ming actually said such words, which made Yu Lily feel a little happy in the bottom of her heart. Had this man already started to take action? Uncle Xiao was also a smart person. Of course, he recognized Shen Manting. Her face and figure were completely different from Shen Manting's. But when he heard this, he didn't say anything. He nodded and said, "So that's how it is. Yes, I'll invite you to my wedding." Although his eyes were empty, he seemed to be in good spirits. He said, "Uncle Xiao, if there's nothing else, we'll leave first." "Okay." Uncle Xiao responded and then watched them leave. However, as he watched them leave, he seemed to be deep in thought. What the hell? Isn't that fella's mistress? How did she become my fiancée? After bringing Ming back, Xiao Ziqing and Huijin were both sitting in the living room in their pajamas. Seeing that they had returned, Xiao Ziqing immediately came up to them and said, "Why are you so late? You have to pay attention to your rest. Next time, don't come back so late." Chapter 1148. That won't do. How can you shower now? The doctor said that your wound hasn't healed yet. It's already very difficult to discharge you. Don't be stubborn. Xiao Ziqing nagged. She had already pushed Yu Lily aside and was helping her son up the stairs. Yu Lily followed behind and heard Ming say, "It's fine. Lily can help me clean myself. Mom, don't worry about me. Go to sleep." "You." Xiao Ziqing seemed to disagree. She turned her back to Yu Lily and had no intention of avoiding her words. "She's a lady cleaning your body. What's that? No matter how good your relationship with her is, she's still an outsider. Can't you be more understanding?" Outsider, she was indeed an outsider, but Yu Lily still didn't feel comfortable being called out so loudly. "She's my woman. How is she an outsider?" Ming retorted. "Mom, don't worry about it." With that, he raised his voice and said, "Yu Lily, come here." Yu Lily quickly walked over to Ming's side and said, "I'm here. Take me upstairs. After I shower, we'll sleep." "I'll do it." Xiao Ziqing held onto Ming's hand and refused to let go. She looked at Yu Lily with displeasure and said, "Although you have a close relationship, you're still an unmarried couple. What's the point of sleeping in the same room in your own house? Your room will be for your wife to live in the future. How can you let anyone else sleep in it?" Yu Lily wasn't stupid. She knew that Ming's mother was hinting at her. To put it more plainly, she was pointing out that Yu Lily would never marry Ming, so she couldn't sleep in Ming's room. She should give up on that idea. Even Yu Lily understood, and Ming was even more aware of it. Awkward, Yu Lily felt that her current situation was as if she had stuck herself to it. That feeling made Yu Lily feel disgusted. Her heart tightened and she spoke first. "Auntie, Ming, I didn't intend to stay here. I didn't even bring a change of clothes. I'll go back now." When she said that, it was Qiao Ziqing's turn to be embarrassed. Why did it sound like Qiao Ziqing was chasing her away? She just didn't want this woman to hang out with her son, especially in her own home. Qiao Ziqing felt extremely uncomfortable at the thought of her son being involved with such a woman. But, she hadn't thought of letting Yu Lily go. After all, she was the one who invited her to stay over and she even prepared a guest room for her. However, Qiao Ziqing could not bring herself to explain herself. Due to her personality, Qiao Ziqing was not one to speak softly. Seeing her son's face darken, Qiao Ziqing felt guilty. Ming looked a little lonely. He didn't say anything. He shook off Qiao Ziqing's hand and climbed up the stairs. It was better for him to leave. He didn't have to listen to his mother's words here, and he didn't have to come here to be humiliated. Let's go, let's go. Ming pursed his lips. Even if he was blind, climbing the stairs of his house was no problem at all. Soon, he went up, turned left, found his room, and slammed the door shut. Yu Lily had already walked to the door. When she heard the sound of Ming slamming the door, her heart felt as if it had been hit hard by him. Chapter 1149. By the time Yu Lily got home in a taxi, it was almost midnight. She took a shower. When she came out, her phone reminded her that it was the 3rd day of the Lunar New Year. It was the most important time of the year and the most important time to be united, but she was still alone. Yu Lily lay on the bed on top of the quilt, her whole body spread out. Sleepiness hit her, and she was exhausted. But after closing her eyes for a while, she couldn't fall asleep. There were too many things in her head, and it was too messy. It was so messy that Yu Lily couldn't sort them out. Ding dong. The phone rang. Yu Lily stayed in bed for a long time before picking it up. It was a text from Shenjilia. "Happy New Year. Are you asleep? If not, call me back. Grandma missed you so much that I couldn't sleep." Yu Lily glanced at it and ignored him. After turning off the phone, she closed her eyes and lay in bed. Strangely enough, after reading the text, Yu Lily fell into a deep sleep. At 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, Yu Lily was awakened by the cold. She covered herself with the quilt and went back to sleep. When she woke up again, it was already past midnight. Yu Lily washed up and changed her clothes. She put on some light makeup and was about to go out. Just as she was putting on her shoes, the doorbell rang. Yu Lily wasn't in a hurry. She put on her shoes first and opened the door. But, it was an unexpected guest. When old Mrs. Shen saw Yu Lily, a big smile appeared on her face. Her wrinkled face was full of childishness. She looked very amiable. "Lily." Old Mrs. Shen rushed toward Yu Lily and jumped like a child. Such a move didn't only scare Yu Lily. Shenjilia, who was following behind, was even more shocked. He quickly reached out to help her. Yu Lily also rushed to catch the old lady. If anything happened to her, she would be responsible for everything that happened in the house. Fortunately, both of them were steady, and old Mrs. Shen was in a good position. The two young people were scared, but the old lady was laughing and in a good mood. "Why are you here?" Yu Lily felt strange and shouted angrily. "You're so old, and you're still going around. Is it fun? The plane is flying back and forth. If something goes wrong, don't blame me." Old Mrs. Shen was stunned by the roar. She looked up at Yu Lily with a blank expression. Shenjilia, who was standing behind, looked at Yu Lily as if he was looking at a hero. He gave Yu Lily a thumbs up in his heart. One had to know that this old man was old and had a mental problem, but in his family, he was highly respected. Old Mrs. Shen was like a tyrant in the house. Even Shen Longyue didn't dare to say anything harsh to her, let alone yell at her face to face. However, it was a good roar, a good roar. This roar was so satisfying. But it was estimated that Yu Lily would also be miserable. This old lady was very vengeful. Later, she would use her poisonous tongue to scold Yu Lily like an earthworm, wishing that she could drill into the ground. However, something unexpected happened. The old lady's face was full of grievance. She even looked at Yu Lily pitifully. Shunjilia had lived for 27 years, but he had never seen the old lady like that. Chapter 1150. The old lady looked cautious and asked, "Lily, are you angry?" When Yu Lily saw the old lady's expression, the anger and impatience in her heart immediately dissipated. Looking at the old lady, Yu Lily felt helpless and said, "Old Mrs. Shen, you're getting on in years. It's better for you to stay at home. If anything happens, not only will you suffer, but your children and grandchildren will also be worried about you." "Are you worried about me?" Old Mrs. Shen's eyes were wide open. Her eyes were a little cloudy, but at that moment, they were filled with childish anticipation. Yu Lily didn't know what to say for a moment. In all honesty, she was only worried that the old lady would cling to her again. If she couldn't leave even if she scolded her, it would be troublesome. But, who knew that the old lady would really take advantage of her? It was as if the old lady knew that Yu Lily wouldn't be able to handle her. That made Yu Lily angry and helpless. The old lady had come all the way to find her. She couldn't really scold her. When Shunjilia saw the helpless look on Yu Lily's face, he quickly tried to smooth things over and said, "That's right. Grandma, Lily is just concerned about you. I told you not to run around. I knew that Lily would be upset." Yu Lily said. When she heard Shunjilia's voice, Yu Lily laughed in anger. Without any explanation, she slapped him on the arm and shouted, "Why didn't you tell me that you were coming?" If he had told her, she would have gone into hiding. This old lady was too annoying. "Grandma said that it would be a surprise for you." Shunjilia hugged his arm and took a deep breath. "You hit me too hard. Didn't you know how to be gentler?" When Yu Lily heard that, she was so angry that she slapped him again. "Fine. I'll be gentler. Gentler. Gentler." Every word was like a heavy slap to the face. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Shunjilia quickly dodged and hid behind the old lady. But, in the end, he still felt guilty. He had been pestered by the old lady, which was why he had come to look for her. "It's your fault for not answering my calls or video calls. Grandma misses you so much that she talks about you every day." As Shunjilia spoke, he looked at Yu Lily's face. His eyes darkened as he slowly said, "And I also want to see you." When Yu Lily heard the last sentence, she lost all her confidence. Shunjilia seemed to have been dumped by her, right? "I'm so hungry. Shall we go eat?" Old Mrs. Shen acted as if she hadn't seen or heard their interaction. She touched her belly and said, "Old people can't stand hunger. Once they're hungry, they feel uncomfortable all over. Lily, let the youngest treat us to dinner." As she spoke, she came over and held Yu Lily's hand affectionately. "After dinner, let's go to the movies and go shopping, shall we?" Shunjilia felt his hair stand on end. This. Why did it feel a little horrifying coming from the old lady's mouth? Have a meal, stroll the streets. The last time he said this, he was slapped in the face. Shunjilia felt a little resentful. He rubbed his arm, which was hurting from Yu Lily's slap, and asked old Mrs. Shen, "Grandma, what do you want to eat?" Listen to Lily. Chapter 1151. I want to eat Thai food. Curry. Savatakar. Old Mrs. Shen shouted excitedly. She dragged Yu Lily along and said, Lily, do you like curry very much? Let's go eat curry together. Yu Lily looked at Shenjilia strangely. Shenjilia shrugged and said, Grandma likes curry very much. I didn't tell her that you like it. Look, Lily and I are really connected. Jilia, lead the way. Let's go together. Old Mrs. Shen pulled Yu Lily out. Yu Lily quickly pushed her away and went inside to get her bag before they went out together. Yu Lily hadn't turned on her phone since last night. As soon as she turned it on, messages and calls came in continuously. Holding it in her hand, the phone rang for several seconds before it stopped. Shenjilia and old Mrs. Shen stared at her phone curiously. Yu Lily clicked on it and found that several of them were Shenjilia's numbers. There were also 2 unfamiliar numbers from the capital. Needless to say, they must be old Mrs. Shen's. Then, there were O Ming's number, Xiao Ziqing's number, and the landline number in Kingstown. Needless to say, they were all from O Ming. Yu Lily looked at the time. It was already 1 p.m. At this time, O Ming couldn't have eaten yet, could he? When the 3 of them got out of the elevator, Yu Lily regretted her decision and said, Why don't you go eat first? I have something urgent to deal with. As he spoke, he reached out and pulled the old lady out of the neighborhood. There's a big shopping mall about a kilometer up ahead. There's a Thai restaurant there. Shenjilia, take your grandmother there. I won't be going. How can you do that? My grandmother came all the way to find you, and you're not even willing to have a meal with her? Shenjilia looked angry and said, You're too heartless. Yu Lily felt a headache coming on and said, I really have something to do. I was just about to go out to do that, okay. Old Mrs. Shen looked a little regretful. She lowered her head and said, Then go do what you need to do. Will you go home tonight? Yes. As compensation, will you sleep with me tonight? Old Mrs. Shen looked at Yu Lily with a pair of cloudy old eyes and some expectations. When Yu Lily saw the look in his eyes, she felt even more sorry for him. She could see that the old lady really liked her. She had called several times, and now she had come all the way from the capital to play with her. If she continued to ignore him, Yu Lily wouldn't be able to live with herself. If she didn't eat with O Ming, he wouldn't be able to. Facing the expectant look in the old lady's eyes, Yu Lily finally nodded her head and said, All right, I'll see you tonight. The old lady was finally happy. With a smile on her face, she stretched out her finger to Yu Lily and said, Okay, then pinky swear with Grandma. Yu Lily was surprised. How could this old lady be? But facing her expectant eyes, Yu Lily still stuck out her finger. You have you. You. Shen smiled and said, You, Lily. You. This is called taking a step back in order to advance. You see, I can be alone with her tonight. Chapter 1152. Shenjilia sympathized with Yu Lily in his heart. When he turned his head and saw the expectant look on old Mrs. Shen's face, he suddenly felt a little strange. Could it be that Grandma has been lonely for so many years, and she wants to have a twilight romance with Yu Lily? Is it really okay for an old cow to bite on young grass? Furthermore, both of them are women. Shenjilia suddenly felt a chill run down his spine, and his whole body trembled. What a pervert. Old Mrs. Shen had no idea what her grandson thought of her. All she could think about was what was going to happen that night. When Yu Lily got into the taxi, she called O Ming. O Ming hung up the phone and didn't pick it up. Yu Lily was stunned and dialed again. The second call was answered. O Ming picked up the phone and said, I accidentally pressed the button just now. Yu Lily understood and changed the subject. Have you eaten yet? No, I'm waiting for you to eat with me. Where are you? O Ming's voice was low, and his tone was dependent. Did you just wake up? Yeah, I accidentally overslept. I'm in the car now, and I'll be there soon. After thinking for a moment, she asked, Did you shower last night? No. Did you wipe yourself? No. Why? I couldn't wring the towel out. Oh Ming's words carried a hint of grievance. Yu Lily smiled at his pitiful words and asked, Your mother didn't help you? I'm already an adult, and I still need my mother to help me shower. What do I look like? Aren't you ashamed to let me shower? Yu Lily was clearly not convinced. You're my woman. It's different. The words came out naturally. Yu Lily's heart fluttered, and her lips curved up. I'll hang up first. I'm almost there. Okay. The car stopped very quickly. Yu Lily paid the driver and got out. After she rang the doorbell, Xiao Ziqing opened the door. When she saw that it was Yu Lily, Xiao Ziqing quietly let out a sigh of relief and rebuked, Why are you only here now? What time is it? Yu Lily was a little unhappy when she heard that tone, but she pretended not to hear it. She called out, Auntie. With that, she walked straight up the stairs. Wait a minute. Have you eaten? Xiao Ziqing asked. Yu Lily stopped and turned her head to look at him. Xiao Ziqing came out of the kitchen with a tray and said, Oh Ming hasn't eaten yet. He's waiting for you to eat together, so I prepared food for two. Thank you, Auntie. Yu Lily took it and headed upstairs. Xiao Ziqing had intended to say more, but seeing Yu Lily in front of her, she had no choice but to swallow the words that were on the tip of her tongue. She felt a little dissatisfied. The door to Oh Ming's room was open. Oh Ming was sitting on the sofa next to the bed. In front of him was a table with a computer and a mobile phone. As soon as he entered, he heard the sound of the computer reading. Oh Ming's fingers flew over the keyboard, and at the same time, the computer played all the words he had typed. There wasn't a single typo in the entire row. Yu Lily clicked her tongue and said, It's time to eat. Oh Ming's hand stopped and he turned his head. His eyes were still empty and lifeless. Did my mom say anything to you? She asked me to bring food up to eat with you. That's all. That's it? Is she supposed to say something to me? Chapter 1153. Yu Lily blinked her eyes. She suddenly recalled Xiao Ziqing's hesitant expression earlier. So this was what he wanted to say. However, but I don't want to. She placed the tray on a nearby table and said, Oh Ming, when your hand gets better, I won't be coming anymore. Why? Your mother hates me. She had also made it clear last night that she could not accept Yu Lily. Instead of facing her sarcasm and ridicule every day, it would be better to just not come anymore. She couldn't stand it. Oh Ming reached out with his uninjured hand. Let's move out. Let's go back to my apartment. We'll live together. I can't take good care of you, Oh Ming. She didn't have that right now, and Xiao Ziqing wouldn't allow it. I want to be with you, and no one can stop me. Oh Ming held his hand up, waiting for her to hold it. Looking at his hand, Yu Lily gently pressed his hand down and said, Let's eat. However, it was this small movement that made Oh Ming's heart suddenly turn cold. She did not hold his hand. Has it begun? She was impatient and disdainful. Had she thought it through? Did she not want to live with him, a blind man? Did she not want to marry a blind man? Oh Ming's heart felt like it was being crushed by a big stone. It was terribly heavy. Yu Lily noticed the slight change in Oh Ming's mood, and her eyes darkened. She immediately picked up the bowl and chopsticks to feed him. Throughout the meal, neither of them spoke a word. After eating, Yu Lily packed up the food and sent it to the kitchen to wash and dry. When she went upstairs, she found that the door was locked. Yu Lily couldn't open the door and was stunned. She reached out and patted him, calling out tentatively, Oh Ming? No response. Oh Ming leaned against the sofa and closed his eyes. He listened to the sounds coming from outside, indifferent. The knocking on the door became more and more urgent, and Yu Lily's voice became more and more anxious. "Oh Ming, what are you doing inside? Open the door." When Oh Ming heard this, he suddenly felt that it was ridiculous. What did that mean? Afraid that he would die? Afraid that he would commit suicide? Laughing at himself, Oh Ming clearly felt that his eyes were wet and hot. In the eyes of others, he was so weak. So pitiful, even if he was blind or disabled, as long as he wasn't dead, he wasn't finished. But why were all the people around her like this? His mother was like that, and so was Yu Lily. All of them sympathized with him and treated him like a cripple. She was clearly so unwilling, so why did she still come? It was only because he was crippled and threatened them by not eating. That was all, right? Sadly, Oh Ming realized that apart from being disabled, he didn't have any other weapons. "Enough," Oh Ming said. His voice was not loud, but it was just loud enough for the people outside to hear. "You can go back. I'll rest for a while." Yu Lily's heart ached. She knocked on the door again and panicked. "I'll accompany you. Can you open the door? Let's go back." Oh Ming's voice was even lower and hoarser. At the same time, there seemed to be a hint of a smile, but there was an indescribable sorrow in it. "I want to be alone for a while. Don't ever come again." This way, he wouldn't feel uncomfortable, and he wouldn't be bullied and humiliated by his mother. He was too selfish. He never thought about her feelings. It won't happen again. Chapter 1154. Yu Lily heard that something was wrong with Oh Ming. Her heart was squeezed tightly, and she couldn't breathe. Yu Lily withdrew her hand and didn't knock on the door again. Looking at the door in front of her, Yu Lily took a step back and leaned against the railing on the second floor. Xiao Ziqing saw Yu Lily leaning against the railing and asked, "What's wrong?" Yu Lily turned her head and shook her head. Then, a white light flashed in her mind, and she went forward to knock on the door and said, "Oh Ming, if you want me to leave, you have to let me pick up my things. My bag is still inside." When Oh Ming heard that, he fumbled for her bag on the sofa. Soon, he found it, picked up the shoulder strap, and groped his way to the door. His footsteps were not big, and every step was very slow. When he opened the door, Oh Ming reached out and was about to hand her the bag, but no one reached out to take it. Yu Lily looked at his empty eyes, and her eyes were sad. Yu Lily stepped forward and wrapped her arms around his waist. Oh Ming was shocked. Obviously, he didn't expect that Yu Lily would do such a thing. "What's wrong? You just finished eating, and you have to be in a good mood. How can you be so bad?" Yu Lily gently leaned on his chest, and her voice softened. "You didn't take a bath or wipe yourself yesterday. I'll help you take a bath and wipe yourself, okay?" Her voice was soft, and every word was extremely gentle. But, this was not Yu Lily. His little carp would not talk to him in such a tone as if she was coaxing a child. And she would not be so inexplicably gentle to him. That was the difference. Their attitudes clearly told him this cruel fact. He was disabled. Gently pushing her away, Oh Ming said without any expression, "Go back." As he spoke, he handed Yu Lily's bag forward and said, "I'm sleepy, and I want to sleep. Didn't you sleep well last night?" Yu Lily did not let go and gently pushed him in. "I'll go with you." "I said no." Oh Ming's tone suddenly changed, and there was impatience in his anger. "Are you going or not?" Yu Lily was stunned by his roar. Looking at him, she couldn't believe it. "Oh Ming, do you really want me to go? Let's go." Another shout rang out. Indistinctly, anger surged. Yu Lily pursed her lips and looked at him. Her breathing gradually became faster. She took the bag from his hand and said in a low voice, "I got it. I'll leave now." Oh Ming's heart was in so much pain that he was hysterical. It was as if someone had taken a knife and pried it open. Blood gushed out violently, and everything inside was blurred by the blood. Oh Ming took a step forward, but he quickly stopped. Yu Lily didn't notice his subtle movements. She turned her body slightly and said, "I'll come again when you're in a better mood." After entering the room, he slammed the door fiercely, making a loud noise. Sorrow, accompanied by such a loud noise, came surging. Tears welled up in her eyes, blurring everything. Yu Lily opened her mouth and stopped walking. Her body fell against the wall and she whimpered. Oh Ming closed the door and locked it. When he turned around, it was still dark. There was no change at all. Chapter 1155. Xiao Ziqing's attention was soon attracted by the low sobbing sounds upstairs. Xiao Ziqing heard the noise and walked over. When Yu Lily heard the movement, she quickly wiped her face and stood up. Xiao Ziqing happened to see Yu Lily squatting by the wall and sobbing. She looked at her face, which had turned pink from all the crying, and frowned. "What's wrong? Why are you crying?" "I'm fine." Yu Lily wiped her face and forced a smile. "Auntie, Oh Ming might not be in a good mood. Can I stay here?" "Stay outside?" Xiao Ziqing frowned. When she saw Yu Lily's request, she felt even more uncomfortable. What did that mean? "Can I stay here?" Does that mean that Yu Lily is worried that I won't even let her stay in the corner? Xiao Ziqing understood what was going on and felt extremely displeased. Xiao Ziqing gave Yu Lily a look. She didn't object or agree. She walked toward Oh Ming's room. He gently knocked on the door and shouted, "Son, are you inside? Open the door." There was no immediate response from inside. Yu Lily was also looking forward to the person inside to reply. After about 10 seconds, Oh Ming said, "Mom, I'll be alone for a while. Don't come in. Are you in a bad mood? Why don't you tell Mommy about it? Maybe she'll be in a better mood?" Xiao Ziqing was clearly unwilling to give up. One had to know that she had scolded this woman several times. Every time, she didn't get any benefit from it. But now, Oh Ming could make this stubborn girl cry like this. What had he done? Furthermore, Oh Ming was usually so protective of this woman. How could he bear to let her cry like this? There's something wrong with him. It's okay. I'm tired. I'm going to sleep. Oh Ming said. His voice was a little gloomy. Other than being in a bad mood, there was no other emotion in his voice. When Xiao Ziqing heard that, she had no choice but to give up. She turned to look at Yu Lily and said, "Come down and talk." Yu Lily looked at Xiao Ziqing and felt a little uneasy. When they went downstairs, Xiao Ziqing made a cup of tea for Yu Lily and asked, "Did you quarrel with Oh Ming?" She took the tea and shook her head. "What's going on?" Yu Lily also wanted to ask what was going on. Even Yu Lily couldn't figure out why Oh Ming had suddenly treated her that way. The tears that she had suppressed with great difficulty suddenly gushed out again. Yu Lily took a deep breath and tried to make herself look refreshed. She said, "It's probably because Oh Ming wants to be alone for a while. He's in a bad mood, but thankfully, he just finished eating." When Xiao Ziqing saw Yu Lily in this state, no matter how much she disliked her, she couldn't help feeling a little sad. She looked at Yu Lily with disdain and said, "Why are you crying when you're so ugly? My son isn't dead yet. Since my son has chased you out, you should go back first. When he comes looking for you again, I'll call you over." Yu Lily looked at Xiao Ziqing and said, "What are you crying for when you're so ugly?" When Yu Lily heard that, she panicked and said, "Auntie, Oh Ming is only temporarily in a bad mood. He'll be fine when he's in a better mood. Can I sit here for a while?" Xiao Ziqing didn't say anything. Yu Lily quickly added, "If you think I'm taking up space, I can go to Oh Ming's door." That way, I can hear him whenever he calls out to me. Chapter 1156. Yu Lily quickly got up and went to O Ming's door without even taking a sip of tea. Xiao Ziqing just glanced at her and went out on her own. However, Yu Lily stayed there for more than an hour. During this time, O Ming didn't come out. Yu Lily stood at the door, her mind blank. Suddenly, her phone vibrated and rang. It was a text message. Yu Lily opened the text message. It was from O Ming. A text message from O Ming? A string of numbers. 985454966336336746822. What does it mean? Yu Lily looked at it for a long time, but she didn't know what it meant. She called O Ming. Through the door, she heard the ringtone. It was very soft. Yu Lily listened to the ringtone, waiting for O Ming to pick up. But no matter how many times she called, O Ming didn't pick up. Feeling a little frustrated, Yu Lily stood in the same place and didn't move. All of a sudden, the door opened. Yu Lily was happy. She was about to go up and call him, but then she immediately shut her mouth and didn't dare to move. What does he want to do? O Ming walked out and shouted, "Mom, next time Yu Lily comes, don't let her in." Yu Lily's heart jumped when she heard that. What does O Ming mean? Don't let her in? Then who was it that had been sticking to her these past few days, wanting her to accompany him? O Ming didn't seem to notice that there was another person not far away. He shouted, "Mom, are you there?" No one answered. O Ming turned and walked back in. Just as he was about to close the door, Yu Lily went up and pushed the door open. O Ming paused and said, "You haven't left yet?" "Why? What do you mean by asking your mom not to let me in? Didn't you hear it? Why are you asking?" O Ming pretended to close the door. Although his eyes were empty and his arm was in a cast, his strength was no less than Yu Lily's. "Why, O Ming, what do you mean? I just sent you a message. Didn't you see it?" A message. Yu Lily was stunned and thought of the pile of numbers. It was highly likely that O Ming had pressed the wrong key and changed the keyboard to numeric. O Ming responded calmly. He didn't feel that anything was wrong. Yu Lily didn't dare say that he had actually sent a bunch of numbers. She played dumb and said, "I didn't look at it. I'll check it out later." O Ming was used to typing 9 on his phone's keyboard. Yu Lily only needed to type the numbers to know what they meant. "Then you can go back first." O Ming slammed the door hard, but he couldn't close it. Yu Lily used all her strength to resist and shouted, "Why are you chasing me away? Did I do something wrong?" "You didn't do anything wrong. I was the one who was wrong." O Ming thought to himself, but he couldn't say it out loud. "Or, did I say something that made you unhappy? Tell me, okay? Why are you suddenly in a bad mood? Why are you suddenly chasing me away? Oh Ming, you're already like this. Don't be angry with me, okay? What do you mean I'm already like this?" Oh Ming loosened his grip, and his face darkened. "I'm disabled and blind, so I don't even have the right to be angry, right?" "No." Yu Lily said. "Then what do you mean? Do you think that I should beg you to be with me?" "I don't care." "Yu Lily, go away. I don't want to see, or hear you." Oh Ming's face was only gloomy and emotionless. Yu Lily looked at him and knew that his mood must be terrible. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said such things. Chapter 1157. Yu Lily stopped moving, but she did not retreat. Looking at Oh Ming in front of her, Yu Lily's eyes were filled with compassion and regret that Oh Ming couldn't see. "Oh Ming, it's not that you begged me to be with you, but that I can't leave you. Have you forgotten what I said? I must marry you, and you must marry me, isn't that right?" Yu Lily took a step forward and grabbed his hand. In her voice, there was a bit of pleading. You promised me. Do you want to break your promise now? I know you are in a bad mood, but don't say such things in the future, okay? Although she knew that he was unhappy because of his misfortune, hearing such words still made Yu Lily's heart hurt. It hurt a lot. Such a feeling was more hurtful than any of Qiao Ziqing's words. The pain of a lover was far deeper, more turbulent, and more painful than that of an unrelated person. Oh Ming clearly felt the emotions coming from Yu Lily. He held her with his hand, and his chest was slightly trembling. Why would he want to say something like that? But when he thought of the possibility that he would never recover his eyesight, and Xiao Ziqing's deep misunderstanding of him and Yu Lily, Oh Ming's heart was indescribably sad. Oh Ming pushed her away with a backhand. He didn't say anything, but his hand was very strong. Yu Lily was caught off guard when she was pushed. He slammed the door shut and locked it from the inside. Oh Ming, open the door. Yu Lily was inexplicably flustered. Everything was fine just now. What suddenly happened? Didn't he eat when they first arrived? Why did he suddenly change? Yu Lily slammed the door and shouted, Oh Ming, open the door. Tell me clearly, what do you mean? Does it mean that he doesn't want to marry me? Does it mean that he doesn't want to answer? Why didn't he say it clearly? Yu Lily didn't understand, but looking at the tightly closed door in front of her, the panic in her heart became more and more rampant. Go and check the message. In the future, let's not see each other. Oh Ming's words came through the door. It was muffled, but very clear. Yu Lily heard his words clearly. She quickly picked up the phone and looked at the string of numbers. She typed it out according to the numbers. 9 key pinyin 98545496633633746846822. After Yu Lily punched out, her heart was even more shocked. Yu Lily, let's break up. Sender, bitch oh, go take a look at the messages. In the future, let's not meet again. What Oh Ming had just said rang in her mind. Yu Lily held the phone and looked at the words that automatically came to mind. She couldn't believe it. How could this be, how could this be? Oh Ming told her to break up. How could this be? How could this be? Oh Ming, what do you mean by this? I don't understand. Open the door and explain it to me. Open the door. What do you mean? Oh Ming, what do you mean by this? Come out and explain it to me. Open the door. Open the door. Oh Ming's voice trembled a little, and he slammed the door even harder. However, no matter how hard she shouted or how loud she shouted, the person inside did not move. Oh Ming sat on the ground and leaned against the wall. He could clearly feel the coldness from his back. Chapter 1158. She saw it, and she understood it. That's all right. Oh Ming got up from the ground, walked to the bed, and slowly sat down. Outside, Yu Lily's voice was getting louder and louder. At the same time, it was getting crazier and more hysterical. In the end, the sound of Yu Lily hitting the door was getting softer and softer, and the original voice had collapsed into sobs. Oh Ming leaned against the bed and bit his lower lip, trying not to make a sound. Tears flowed down from the corner of his eyes, and the salty taste, with the smell of weakness, was so strong that it was embarrassing. That's it. Oh Ming's head was getting dizzier, and he fell asleep on the bed. Even Oh Ming himself didn't know how long he had been sleeping. Because he couldn't see, he couldn't even tell the difference between day and night. Standing up, Oh Ming felt a throbbing pain in his arm. Gently stroking it, Oh Ming stood up and opened the door. Outside, it was quiet. Yu Lily was gone. In order to be able to see Yu Lily at any time, Shenjilia took the old lady to a coffee shop downstairs in the neighborhood where Yu Lily lived. People could be seen coming and going at any time. Kingstown was a first-tier city. Basically, at this time of the year, the whole city could be called an empty city. Old Mrs. Shen leaned on the table and stared outside, for fear of missing Yu Lily's arrival. Shenjilia sat opposite the old lady, playing a game on his phone. The killing game kept coming, and Shenjilia was very excited. Suddenly, the old lady stood up and shouted, "Lily, Lily is back." With that, she didn't give Shenjilia any time to recover from his shock. She quickly ran out of the room. Shenjilia quickly turned off the game, caught up with her, and shouted, "Grandma, Lily won't come back at this time. You'd better sit here quietly. When Lily comes back, maybe she'll think you've done a good job and spend more time with you alone." However, Shenjilia's words didn't work. The old lady walked faster, like an old child, and happily shouted, "Lily, you're back." Yu Lily hadn't expected the old lady to appear in front of her so quickly. She rubbed her eyes and tried her best to look natural as she asked, "Old Mrs. Shen, what are you doing here?" When old Mrs. Shen heard this form of address, she was unhappy and said, "What old lady? Can you call me grandma? I've been waiting for you here for a long time. Shall we go eat Thai food now? You guys didn't eat lunch?" "No," Shenjilia replied. He sounded a little helpless. "Grandma said that she had to wait for you to go with her. So, we settled around here in the afternoon." As he spoke, he noticed that Yu Lily's eyes were visibly red and swollen. Shenjilia wasn't the only one who saw through it. Even old Mrs. Shen, who had always behaved like a child in front of Yu Lily, acted as if she hadn't seen it. She walked up to Yu Lily affectionately and took her arm. "Shall we go now?" Old Mrs. Shen was pleasantly surprised. He knew Yu Lily would come back, but he didn't know it would be so early. But at the same time, he did not expect Yu Lily to come back in such a state. The old man's heart ached. After all, she had lived for decades. Old Mrs. Shen could roughly guess the reason for Yu Lily's current state. Chapter 1159. Yu Lily nodded as the old lady held her arm affectionately. His red and swollen eyes looked a little miserable at this moment. Yu Lily reached out to press her eyes, but old Mrs. Shen pulled her hand away. She rebuked, "You can't rub your eyes if they are uncomfortable. The more you rub them, the more uncomfortable they will be. It's better to wear glasses when the wind is strong." As he spoke, he slowly stretched out his hand toward Shenjilia and said, "Old man, glasses." Shenjilia hurriedly took out a pair of sunglasses from the bag he was carrying, arched his back, and jumped onto it with small steps. In a shrill voice, he said, "Your Highness, the glasses have arrived." His appearance was extremely comical. Old Mrs. Shen laughed and took the glasses. When she looked at Yu Lily, she realized that she wasn't smiling like she was. "Here, this is for you." Old Mrs. Shen pushed it toward Yu Lily. "Put it on. It'll protect you from the wind." Yu Lily's heart warmed. She didn't even have to look to know that her eyes were swollen. She didn't stand on ceremony. She took the glasses from old Mrs. Shen and thanked her before leading old Mrs. Shen and Shenjilia toward the mall ahead. When they arrived at the Thai restaurant, a girl in traditional Thai clothes came out to welcome the guests. She put her palms together and said to them, "Savadika." Old Mrs. Shen also bowed to her and said, "Sawadika." Even the waitress couldn't help but laugh as she led them into a private room. After ordering, old Mrs. Shen looked a little excited. She looked at Yu Lily and said, "Lily, this is the first time I've been to a Thai restaurant in Kingstown. I heard that Kingstown is close to Thailand. Why don't we go to Thailand together?" When Shenjilia heard that, he couldn't help but make things difficult for her. He coughed lightly and said, "Grandma, we didn't bring our passports. Ask your brother to send it over. The delivery service is not open." When the old lady heard that, she was displeased. She turned to glare at Shenjilia and said, "Go back and get it. I'll wait for you in Kingstown." "That's not a good idea. You'll fall apart if you keep running around," Shenjilia exclaimed. I don't care. In any case, I'm going to Thailand with Lily. Hurry up and get me my passport. Old Mrs. Shen had her arms akimbo. She was being unreasonable. Who asked you to be my grandson? Shenjilia was speechless. Are you sure this isn't a curse? But when he thought about it carefully, it didn't seem to be wrong. Shenjilia frowned, but when he turned his head, he saw that Lily's lips were slightly raised. Shenjilia felt slightly relieved, but then he said unhappily, even if I'm your grandson, you can't mistreat me like this. Am I still your biological son? I didn't give birth to you in the first place. The old lady didn't find anything wrong with that. She looked at Lily and asked, Lily, do you want to go? If they went, the youngest would go to the capital. The journey there would take 3 hours, and the round trip would only take 6 hours. Even if he takes 3 hours to travel to and from the airport, that's only 9 hours. It's 4:00 in the afternoon now, so he should be back by midnight. When Shenjilia heard that, he exploded and yelled, Grandma! My dear Grandma! Are you trying to kill your grandson? What, you don't want to go? I don't want to, of course I don't. Such an arduous task was not something that just anyone could accomplish. But... Chapter 1160. It doesn't matter. Leave it to me. You can go. Lily's lips curled up slightly, but her sunglasses were still on. Seeing the smile on Lily's face, Shenjilia and old Mrs. Shen both breathed a sigh of relief. Shenjilia immediately pretended to be unhappy and shouted, Hey, my grandmother is bullying me, and you're bullying me too, right? What? Old Mrs. Shen glared at him. Call me Lily. Shenjilia turned his head and shrank his neck when he heard the old lady's words. He picked up his glass and took a sip. Seeing Shenjilia's behavior, Lily's smile became even wider. An indescribable feeling spread through her. Her heart felt warm, but it also felt like a feather was gently tickling it. It was so comfortable that she couldn't help but want to reject it. This was the first time she had eaten with someone other than O Ming and her colleagues, especially on such a special day. It was a wonderful feeling. The dishes were quickly served, and old Mrs. Shen quickly began to eat. Although old Mrs. Shen was not young, her appetite was still very good. Lily had eaten not long ago, but she didn't eat much. Shenjilia had also eaten most of the food for old Mrs. Shen. This was after Shenjilia had stopped her several times. Otherwise, Lily would have suspected that the old lady would have eaten even more. After eating, Shenjilia paid the bill. Old Mrs. Shen had accidentally eaten too much and needed a walk to digest her food. She took Lily with her and walked around the mall. Big malls didn't close during the New Year, so there were still a lot of things to shop. However, the New Year still had the atmosphere of the New Year. The same song, Winter Jasmine, was played everywhere. As he walked with the old lady, she became more and more interested in the song. She even shouted at the top of her lungs, Love a winter jasmine, flowers bloom everywhere. Many shop assistants looked over, and Shenjilia quickly hid in the side. Lily was pulled by the old lady and shouted at the top of her lungs. As she walked, she turned to look at Lily with a big smile on her face. Shenjilia covered his face and hid in the side. When he looked over, he found that Lily was also smiling at his grandmother. It seemed that, she was no longer as impatient as she was at noon. Shenjilia's heart calmed down a little, and there was a look of relief in his eyes. Although he didn't know why his grandmother liked Lily so much, he had to admit that Lily was a very good girl. It was a pity for such a girl to be with a scumbag like O Ming. Old Mrs. Shen sang loudly all the way. Many people watched her as she pulled Lily along. Suddenly, the old lady stopped and turned to look at Shenjilia. She shouted, Shenjilia, why are you hiding so far away? Is it embarrassing for Grandma? Shenjilia was stunned. He quickly covered his face as everyone looked at him. He groaned in his heart. Oh my God! Just call him, but don't call him by his name, okay? His illustrious name. Shenjilia smiled sheepishly and said, I'm paving the way. Paving the way. With that, he ran off like a wisp of smoke. Old Mrs. Shen glared at him. She grabbed Yu Lily's hand and chased after Shenjilia. She shouted, Stop right there. Chapter 1161. When old Mrs. Shen heard that, she felt a little proud. When she turned to look at Yu Lily, her eyes were full of pride. Am I very powerful? Yu Lily pursed her lips and nodded. Very powerful. Old Mrs. Shen was even more proud. She laughed and chased after Shenjilia. Shenjilia, who was in front, was secretly shocked. He shouted, Grandma, slow down. Do you want to die? When old Mrs. Shen heard that, she was unhappy and shouted, What do you mean? Shenjilia cried bitterly in his heart, and his expression immediately changed. With an apologetic look on his face, he stepped forward and said, Grandma, I was wrong. Old Mrs. Shen glared at him and reached out to pull his ear up. What did you do wrong? Everything is wrong. Shenjilia admitted defeat. Especially after seeing Yu Lily's faint smile, he became even more terrified. He cried out in pain, It hurts, it hurts. More and more people were watching. Shenjilia covered his face in shame. Ah, Grandma, let's go. I'll take you somewhere else to play. Yu Lily removed old Mrs. Shen's hand. After helping Shenjilia out, she took the old lady's hand and walked forward. When old Mrs. Shen heard that, she was very happy. She nodded and took Yu Lily's arm affectionately. She strode forward. Just like that, a few hours passed. Although old Mrs. Shen was physically strong, she was old. At about 7 or 8 o'clock, Shenjilia forced the old lady to go back. Naturally, the old lady was very reluctant. In the end, Yu Lily persuaded her to go back. Shenjilia and the old lady took Yu Lily to the hotel. It was a famous 5-star hotel in Kingstown. Shenjilia had booked a suite with 2 rooms. Just as Shenjilia asked the old lady to take a shower, old Mrs. Shen seemed to be afraid that Yu Lily would go back on her word. She hugged Yu Lily's arm and said with a pair of old eyes, Lily, you said you would sleep with me tonight. Yu Lily smiled and said, Well, I won't go back on my word. Old Mrs. Shen was relieved and went to take a shower. However, Yu Lily didn't bring any clothes. She was temporarily wearing a hotel bathrobe. When he came out, the old lady was sitting on the bed, holding a tablet and playing a popular game. It was simple yet not so simple, comparable to Tetris. Yu Lily leaned over to take a look. Old Mrs. Shen extended the tablet toward her and said, Come on, let's play together. Yu Lily chuckled and pushed it back. She looked at old Mrs. Shen, deliberated over her words, and said, Actually, Grandma, I wanted to ask you from the very beginning. Can you answer this question for me? What? Old Mrs. Shen lowered her head and blinked at Yu Lily. Yu Lily felt that the old man was a little cute and asked, Why do you like me so much? My attitude toward you has never been very friendly. You saved me, old Mrs. Shen said without hesitation. She looked at Yu Lily and said mysteriously, To tell you the truth, I can see a person's fortune. Luck? Chapter 1162. Ever since our old man died, I feel like I've become half a god. When I look at others, if I get along well with them, I can see a layer of fog above their heads. As old Mrs. Shen spoke, she looked at the top of Yu Lily's head. Above everyone's head, there will be a ball of luck that belongs to them. Within this ball of luck, there will be bad luck, good luck, and bad luck. There will always be many storms in one's life, and only in the end, can one comfortably welcome the rainbow. Old Mrs. Shen had a smile on her face, but at that moment, she looked different from how she had looked during the day. She was kind, and the wrinkles on her face folded up. She reached out and gently patted her hand. From the first time I saw you, I knew that you were destined to be with me. Lily, your luck complements mine. When I first saw you, I felt that you were very likely to be my long-lost granddaughter. Lily blushed with shame. She smiled and asked, "Isn't it Xiaofan? That child was also destined to be with our family." As for what kind of fate, I couldn't tell, so I simply brought her home. Who knew, she would have such a fate with Xiaofan? What a sin. Although that was what she said, old Mrs. Shen wasn't really that angry. She had expected it, so it was normal for there to be some discrepancies. The Shen family was also a prestigious family in the capital. Xiaofan was an orphan. Given such an opportunity to climb the social ladder, she did not hesitate to follow her and even became friends with her. She had thought that Lily would be easy to deal with. Who knew that this girl would hate her so much? Lily's attitude was far beyond old Mrs. Shen's expectations. Her desire to bring her home was aroused. However, it was also during this time that she became more aware of Lily's extraordinary qualities. This girl's life was like a spring. The more pain she could endure, the more happiness she could obtain. The more she was suppressed now, the more she would rebound in the future. In the past, her life was cheap, and in the future, it would be priceless. I don't match your lost granddaughter's age. I don't think it can't be that granddaughter, right? Rumor had it that old Mrs. Shen was very harsh toward Yi Qianqian's younger sister. If she really became their granddaughter, would she? Old Mrs. Shen didn't notice Lily's worry. She patted her hand and said, "You and I are fated. Regardless of whether we are related by blood or not, I am willing to be friends with you." As she spoke, she quietly looked around and whispered, "Lily, what do you think of our grandson?" This grandson was, of course, referring to Shenjilia. Lily was speechless. Thinking of Shenjilia's sloppy appearance, she shook her head and said, "Grandma, don't try to match me up. I'm not interested in Shenjilia." What a pity. Old Mrs. Shen patted her hand. "I really don't know what's so good about that guy. You like him, and my disappointing granddaughter insisted on marrying him. Now I heard that he got into a car accident. What's his situation now?" Hearing that, Lily's eyes dimmed slightly. "Is it serious?" When he saw Lily in the afternoon, she seemed to be crying a lot. From the look of it, he could tell that Ken was seriously injured. Chapter 1163. After old Mrs. Shen said that, she felt like she had asked too many questions. She couldn't even see. Of course, it was serious, it will all pass. That boy is also a blessed man. Lily forced a smile and didn't say anything. The old lady had played the whole day and taken a plane here. She was already very tired. At that moment, she didn't talk to Lily and fell asleep unknowingly. The old lady had a regular schedule. She woke up at 6:00 in the morning. When she woke up, Lily was sleeping soundly. Her face was buried under her arms, and her hair covered most of her face. The old lady turned to look at Lily. She looked at Lily's slightly curled up sleeping position. At that moment, she was curled up in the corner of the bed, looking like a child who lacked a sense of security. It was also at that moment that the old lady strongly remembered that she was an orphan. An orphan who grew up without parents. An orphan who was abandoned when she was born. An orphan who couldn't find her parents. The feeling of loneliness could be felt from her sleeping position. The old lady had never been an emotional person, but at that moment, when she felt this inexplicable atmosphere, she couldn't help but feel a lump in her throat. The old lady looked at Lily for a while. Suddenly, she opened her eyes with a thump. Seeing that old Mrs. Shen was looking at her, Lily remembered where she was. She smiled and said, "Grandma, good morning." Morning. Did you have a nightmare? Old Mrs. Shen looked at her kindly. When she saw the tears on her face, her heart ached even more. She reached out and patted her gently on the arm with a slight smile on her face. Yu Lily smiled and wiped the tears on her face. She climbed up and said, "Sort of." Yu Lily's eyes looked much more swollen than yesterday. Coupled with the dried water stains on her face, it wasn't difficult to imagine what kind of dream she had. "What sad dream did you have? Tell me about it." Old Mrs. Shen's voice was soft and slow. It sounded full of love. At the same time, her old and dry hand had already gently touched the ends of Yu Lily's hair. The old lady in front of her was obviously old. Her back was slightly bent, and her face was layered with wrinkles. But at that moment, she gave Yu Lily the warmth of an elder that she had never felt before. Other than O Ming, this was the first person who had spoken to her like this. Yu Lily felt a surge of anger in her chest, and she couldn't control it. Her throat was choked with pain, and tears flowed down. "What's wrong?" Old Mrs. Shen frowned and looked at Yu Lily with sadness in her eyes. Yu Lily couldn't help but burst into tears. She gently hugged the old man and smelled the unique smell of the old man's metabolism. A place in her heart that had been empty for many years suddenly seemed to be filled. Yu Lily was sobbing uncontrollably. Old Mrs. Shen stopped asking. She hugged her gently and gave her silent comfort. "Thank you, Grandma. Did O Ming bully you?" Old Mrs. Shen patted Yi Qianqian's back gently and said softly, "It just so happens that Grandma hasn't visited them in a long time. Why don't you take Grandma over there and have a seat? Go to the O clan." Chapter 1164. Settle accounts. When Yu Lily heard those two words, her heart warmed again. This was the first time, other than O Ming, that someone had said something like that. After being bullied outside, someone came back and said they would help you get revenge and settle accounts. What kind of relationship was that? Family? Family? None of them. But why was this old lady so nice to her? Was it just because she liked her? Yu Lily found it a little strange. When she heard that, she nodded her head. Coincidentally, she was going to look for O Ming. If she went alone, Xiao Ziqing wouldn't even let her in. If she brought along the old lady who used to be their in-law, the outcome might be different. When the old lady saw that she had agreed, she was immediately happy. She got up and went to the bathroom to freshen up. Then, they were ready to set off. When everything was ready, it was only a little after 7 o'clock. Shengjilia was still sleeping. Just as Yu Lily was thinking about whether or not to wake him up, the old lady gave her a look to tell her not to. It was 8 o'clock in the morning when they arrived at the O residence. It was old Mrs. Shen who rang the doorbell. Yu Lily hid in the corner, afraid that Xiao Ziqing wouldn't open the door if she saw her through the peephole. However, it wasn't Xiao Ziqing who opened the door. It was O Huijin. When O Huijin saw old Mrs. Shen, he was very surprised. He called out, "In-law Grandma, why are you here?" In-law Grandma. That was obviously a form of address that had been used since before. It hadn't changed. Old Mrs. Shen nodded her head and said, "I brought my granddaughter here to take a look." As she spoke, she looked at O Huijin and asked, "May I come in?" O Huijin quickly moved aside and said, "Please come in quickly. The weather is a little cold today. Why aren't you wearing more clothes? Your granddaughter is here too." "My granddaughter, Shen Manting, is here too? The woman who caused the scandal with her brother? The ex-fiancée of my son?" "Yes. But she's not my biological granddaughter. I adopted her outside." Old Mrs. Shen looked at O Huijin confidently. O Huijin nodded his head. Shen Manting wasn't her biological granddaughter. Old Mrs. Shen had adopted her outside a few years ago. He wasn't the only one who knew that. Many people in the outside world knew. As he spoke, he looked behind the old lady and called out, "Manting is here too? Why don't you come in?" However, when old Mrs. Han heard Oh Huijin's shout, she felt unhappy and retorted, "Who told you it was Manting? I already said it wasn't her." Oh Huijin felt a little awkward. If it wasn't Shen Manting, who could it be? Old Mrs. Shen snorted and looked back. She realized that Yu Lily hadn't followed her in. That made old Mrs. Shen a little unhappy. She shouted, "Lily, what are you doing outside? Come on in." "Lily?" When he said that, not only did Oh Huijin feel a little surprised, but even Xiao Ziqing, who had just walked out, was amazed. He subconsciously looked at the door, and sure enough, he saw a familiar figure walking in. Yu Lily. Yu Lily didn't seem to be in a good state today. She only had light makeup on, but it still couldn't hide the red and swollen eyes. It seemed that he was in a much more sorry state than he was yesterday. Chapter 1165. Xiao Ziqing and her husband looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. When did Yu Lily become the granddaughter of the Shen family? They hadn't heard anything about it before. Furthermore, Xiao Ziqing had heard a little about how difficult the old lady was to deal with. She had even heard that she had some mental problems. Her mind was often muddled, and she was always spouting nonsense. Furthermore, her mood was erratic and unpredictable. If you made her unhappy in any way, the old lady would flip out at the drop of a hat. Even Shen Manting was often at a loss for what to do with the old lady's erratic personality. How did Yu Lily end up with the old lady? Old Mrs. Shen ignored their astonishment. She turned around and walked over to Yu Lily. She held her arm affectionately and walked toward the living room of the O residence with a smile. Xiao Ziqing was even more stunned when she saw the scene. In the 4 years that Shen Manting had been engaged to O Ming, the old lady had come over once or twice, but she had always brought her granddaughter in with the attitude of an elder to discuss marriage and other matters. She was stingy with a smile, let alone holding Shen Manting's hand as they walked in. How did Yu Lily deal with this old lady? Yu Lily felt goosebumps rise under Xiao Ziqing's stare. She looked up and smiled sheepishly. The old lady didn't care. Under the gaze of Xiao Ziqing and Oh Huijin, she swaggered over to the sofa and sat down. "Sister Yang, bring me the Jin Junmei tea that I brought back before the new year," Oh Huijin shouted into the room. "All right." Sister Yang quickly brought the tea over. The way she looked at Yu Lily was also a little strange. A few days ago, Sister Yang had been on leave and hadn't seen Yu Lily, but she was no stranger to the old lady. Now that she saw this unfamiliar granddaughter, she couldn't help but take a second look. Faced with all the strange gazes around her, Yu Lily felt like she was sitting on pins and needles. She felt a little uncomfortable. Everyone had their own thoughts. Xiao Ziqing sat down in front of them and handed old Mrs. Shen some snacks with a smile. She asked, "Why does Grandma have time to come over today? It's the new year. Is everything peaceful in the capital?" The implication was, "Your family still has a mess to deal with, so why did you come to my house?" Old Mrs. Shen had lived for a long time. How could she not understand? She snorted and said, "I heard that your son got into a car accident, so I asked my granddaughter to bring me here to take a look. After all, we used to be in-laws. I don't want people to say that I'm cold. I came here just to hang out with Lily, but I didn't even stop by to take a look." When Xiao Ziqing heard that, she looked at Yu Lily even more. "Is he here to look for Yu Lily?" In that case, Yu Lily and the old lady had known each other for a long time? Could it be that Yu Lily was not an orphan, but was somehow related to the Shen family? She glanced at Yu Lily, then at the old lady. She nodded her head without changing her expression. "Thank you for your concern, my dear grandmother. Where's your son?" Chapter 1166. When Yu Lily heard that, she knew that the words were directed at her. Looking down at the table, Yu Lily subconsciously clasped her hands together. He's eating well and sleeping soundly. He's in good shape. Shouldn't I be happy to hear that? But, for some reason, Yu Lily felt an indescribable pain in her heart. So, after breaking up with me, he will be in better shape? How is that possible? Yu Lily didn't believe it. But, she saw Xiao Ziqing's relaxed expression. She didn't seem worried about her son at all. Instead, she looked very relaxed and happy. Old Mrs. Shen looked at her and said, "Is that so? That's great. I was worried that something would happen to your son. After all, the engagement between your family and mine hasn't been cancelled. In the future, our families will become in-laws. I don't want my granddaughter to marry a cripple." Her words were so direct that it was embarrassing. Yu Lily felt as if a knife had cut into her heart. In that moment, she suddenly felt that everything around her had nothing to do with her. The engagement between Shen Manting and O Ming hasn't been cancelled. So, their engagement hasn't been cancelled? After what happened between Shen Manting and Shen Luohan, their engagement hasn't been cancelled? Yu Lily found it hard to believe. But, looking at the expressions of Xiao Ziqing and O Huijin, she knew. It was true. Xiao Ziqing was a little embarrassed and said, "Grandma, how can you say that? Our son, is your son really a cripple?" Old Mrs. Shen looked at her and asked sharply. Xiao Ziqing's words were stuck in her throat. She didn't know whether to say yes or no. O Ming's condition was indeed not good. Not only was he blind, but his hand was also fractured. But, how could his parents accept the word cripple? When Yu Lily saw that, she quietly reached out and tugged on old Mrs. Shen's sleeve. In a low voice, she said, "Grandma, O Ming is fine." "What do you mean by fine? Is it really as you said? He can't see." Old Mrs. Shen didn't have the slightest intention of hiding her voice. "Isn't he blind? What's the difference between that and a cripple? Our granddaughter can't marry someone like that." Old Mrs. Shen. A young man's voice came from the second floor. This voice was cold and displeased, and it made one's heart tremble. Yu Lily's heart fluttered. She looked in the direction of the voice and saw O Ming in his pajamas. At that moment, O Ming's hand was in a cast hanging from his neck. His eyes were looking straight ahead. He looked empty and lifeless, like a puppet. "If you have come to see if I am crippled, you have seen it. I am blind and crippled, as you know. You may go back." As for Shen Manting, what gave her the confidence to believe that I would marry a woman like you, who has ruined our family's reputation? I, O Ming, can't afford to be cuckolded by my brother. Yu Lily hadn't said a word since she entered the house. O Ming knew that old Mrs. Shen hadn't come alone. When he heard her call herself their granddaughter, he naturally assumed that the person who had come was Shen Manting. Chapter 1167. Please go back. It's the new year, and no one will be happy if things go sour. As she spoke, she groped her way downstairs. Such a scene was shocking to the eye. Xiao Ziqing immediately stood up and wanted to walk in O Ming's direction, but she was one step too late. Yu Lily's footsteps were fast as she ran in that direction. O Ming couldn't see, but he could vaguely guess who it was from the sound of her footsteps. Just as Yu Lily was about to reach him, O Ming stopped. "Why are you here?" O Ming asked. It was obvious that he had recognized Yu Lily. Xiao Ziqing and O Huijin looked at each other and saw different emotions in each other's eyes. Old Mrs. Shen was still sitting on the sofa, drinking tea calmly. She looked at Yu Lily on the second floor with a look of admiration in her eyes. Brave. Not bad. Yu Lily didn't say anything. She walked up to him and grabbed his uninjured arm without a word and pulled him forward. O Ming's footsteps were frozen in place. He didn't move an inch. I thought I made it clear yesterday that we broke up. You Lily, what's the point of doing this? He didn't wait for you Lily to speak before he turned to the side and shouted, Mom, didn't we agree not to let her in? Hearing that, Xiao Ziqing's heart was filled with doubt. Could Ming be serious? Ming didn't look like he was faking it. Why did he suddenly break up? Xiao Ziqing wasn't the only one who was curious. Even Yu Lily herself was baffled. Ming! Yu Lily shouted. Why are you saying something like that for no reason? You have to give me a reason. I didn't meet you yesterday, so don't even think of escaping today. You have to give me an explanation, or I won't leave. Yes, for no reason. No one would be willing to accept such a situation. Even Ming himself wouldn't easily accept such a sudden breakup. Could he tell her that he had thought it through and didn't want to hold her up any longer? Could he tell her that he didn't want her to be a cripple for the rest of her life, and that she should find another way out and find another man? If he said that, Yu Lily would be even more unwilling to break up with him. Ming knew her very well. Yu Lily was a good girl, and it was precisely because of this that he could not delay her. It was very likely that he would be like this for the rest of his life, blind, forever in need of others to take care of him, unable to work, becoming a burden to his family and his parents, forever living in darkness, never to see the light of day. Furthermore, Xiao Ziqing's opinion of Yu Lily was huge. It wasn't something that could be changed overnight. He couldn't afford it, and he didn't want Yu Lily to compromise because of him. Hearing Yu Lily's words, Ming's heart tightened. He wanted to pull his hand back, but Yu Lily's hands were holding him tightly. Ming couldn't push her away with just one hand. He simply let her hug him and said coldly, a man doesn't want a woman who is greedy for money and vanity. Isn't that a reason? Yu Lily felt a stab in her heart. She looked at Ming in disbelief. Are you talking about me? Is there someone else besides you? Chapter 1168. Yu Lily's voice was filled with disbelief. She unconsciously loosened her grip on Ming. Ming took the opportunity to pull his hand back and said, I'm denouncing my ex-girlfriend. She did all the hypocritical things she could. On the surface, she treated me impeccably, but in reality, she was willing to do anything to marry me. Outsiders must think that you're loyal, but do you think I don't know your true colors? You want to marry me, then use all means to get a divorce and get a large share of the alimony, right? The more Yu Lily listened, the more unreasonable she found it. Such a reason, such a reason. Nonsense. Yu Lily roared. Ming, you're crazy. What nonsense are you talking about? Do you think I care about your family's money? If you don't care, why won't you break up with me? If you don't care, why are you still pestering me? Ming retorted. His tone was urgent. My mother is right. Orphans like you are hypocritical. You grew up without parents, so you don't know anything about relationships. Xiao Ziqing was caught off guard. She was stunned. Huijin was equally baffled. No one had expected that in just a few days, the relationship between Ming and Yu Lily would change so much. Apart from Ming himself, no one could understand what he meant. Yu Lily's body trembled with anger. She looked at Ming, and even her breathing became rapid. Ming took advantage of the situation and said, You were with me because of this from the beginning, weren't you? You were with me because I was rich and healthy. Now that I'm disabled, the most important thing. Slap. A loud slap interrupted Ming's words. Ming's head was buzzing. It was as if a swarm of flies were flying around his ears. Xiao Ziqing's eyes widened and she shouted, You be *tch. How dare you hit my son? As she said that, she flew forward. Ming laughed coldly. Are you angry because your secret has been exposed? You Lily, aren't you very tolerant? Now you're. Slap. Another vicious slap landed on O Ming's face. Neither side of his face was spared. O Ming's head was dizzy, and his body swayed. Yu Lily didn't expect O Ming to be so fragile. The wounds on both sides of O Ming's cheeks, which were wrapped in gauze, quickly oozed blood. Looking at his wobbly body, Yu Lily subconsciously wanted to go forward and hold him, but she was pushed away harshly. Yu Lily was caught off guard and stumbled. Xiao Ziqing's anxious voice could be heard. She cried out to O Ming, "Son." O Ming's head buzzed, and he barely managed to steady himself. Xiao Ziqing supported him. His surroundings were murky, and he felt a little dizzy. His heart ached as if it was being sliced into pieces. In the darkness, O Ming could clearly feel the tears seeping from the corner of his eyes. He laughed coldly and said with some sadness, "Do you see that? I can't even avoid a woman's slap now. Do you fancy a man like that? How dare you say it's not for the money? Yu Lily, you are so hypocritical." Yu Lily's heart had originally felt sorry for him, but now it was all gone. This man, this kind of man. She must be blind to have fallen in love with this kind of man. She should have seen through it a long time ago. Was the lesson in the nightclub and the hospital not deep enough? Chapter 1169. It couldn't be changed, no matter what she did, no matter how much effort she put in, or how infatuated she was. O Ming seemed to believe that she had ulterior motives. It had happened once, twice, and this was already the third time. O Ming, I must have been King blind. Yu Lily didn't cry. Her eyes were filled with determination and desolation. She looked at the pitiful man in front of her and laughed coldly. "Remember what you said today, O Ming. From now on, I won't come looking for you again. You'd better not come begging me. Otherwise, I'll despise you just like you despised me today. You'd better not give me that chance." With that, Yu Lily turned around and quickly walked down the stairs. Faced with O Huijin's meaningful gaze, Yu Lily's heart ached. She quickly walked to the sofa, picked up her handbag, and ran out the door. Once she was out the door, Yu Lily's mood was surprisingly calm. There were no waves of emotions that she had imagined, no overflowing sorrow that she had imagined. Instead, there was an indescribable calmness. She couldn't even shed a tear. Yu Lily stood at the door, waiting for the old lady to come out. She didn't know what the old lady was doing inside. After a few minutes, she came out. When she saw that Yu Lily was waiting for her, the old lady went up to her and said, "Child, you're a good child." When Yu Lily heard that, she tried her best to smile at old Mrs. Shen, but her muscles were tense. She couldn't force out a smile at all. Old Mrs. Shen looked at Yu Lily and reached out to gently push her hair back. "If you can't bring yourself to smile, then don't. Let's go back." "Okay." Yu Lily lowered her gaze and led the old lady out to hail a taxi. At that moment, a taxi stopped. It had been busy, but now it was empty. Yu Lily and the old lady waited for the person in the taxi to get out. Unexpectedly, they saw a familiar face. Wen Fenglin was a little surprised to see Yu Lily there. Yu Lily greeted, "Uncle Wen." Wen Fenglin nodded his head and smiled. Two deep dimples appeared on both sides of his cheeks. He looked very kind and benevolent. He looked at Yu Lily and was about to speak when his gaze inadvertently landed on the old lady beside Yu Lily. He froze. When old Mrs. Shen saw Wen Fenglin, she paused for a moment as well. Her murky eyes shone with a sharp light as she asked, "It's you? You know each other?" Yu Lily was surprised. She looked at the old lady and then at Wen Fenglin. Why does it feel like the relationship between them isn't very good? When Wen Fenglin saw old Mrs. Shen, the smile on his face disappeared. He asked, "When did you come to Kingstown?" "As for the imperial capital." Old Mrs. Shen looked at Wen Fenglin. Her face darkened and she laughed mirthlessly. "What? Are you going to pick me up after I ask? Or are you going to treat me to a meal? You haven't eaten? Wen Fenglin asked with surprise. Why don't we? Forget it. Old Mrs. Shen looked at him and laughed mirthlessly. If you treat me to a meal, I'm afraid my lifespan will be shortened. With that, she pulled Yu Lily to open the door of the taxi and said, Lily, let's go. Before Yu Lily had time to digest the relationship between them, old Mrs. Shen had already pulled her into the car. Yu Lily turned her head and smiled at Wen Fenglin. She looked apologetic. The old lady got the driver to drive off. Wen Fenglin watched as the taxi drove away. His eyes were cold and desolate. Chapter 1170. The taxi quickly disappeared. Wen Fenglin turned and walked back to the O residence. He pressed the doorbell, but it took a long time for the person inside to open the door. The person who opened the door was Xiao Ziqing. Her eyes were red, and she looked very sad. When she saw Wen Fenglin, she started yelling, You said that Yu Lily was a good child. Do you know what that woman did? She hit my son. She made my son's face bleed. You and old O must be blind. This kind of woman, sob. He couldn't continue and said, We must hurry and persuade Xiao O to go to the hospital. He lost so much blood, I hope he doesn't get sick from the beating. She quickly led Wen Fenglin up to the second floor. When they got there, they realized that the door was locked from the inside. Xiao Ziqing knocked on the door, but there was no response. Inside, O Ming was lying on the bed. O Huijin was looking at him from the side. His gaze was deep. His eyes were the same as O Ming's, and they carried a penetrating sharpness. He looked at his son on the bed and said meaningfully, You've grown up. There are many things that parents shouldn't interfere with, but what you did today was too much. You were the one who provoked her, and now you're the one who insulted her. Why did you do that? O Ming didn't open his eyes when he heard that. In a muffled voice, he said, You don't like her, do you? Now that I've broken up with her, shouldn't you be happy? That's the only reason. I thought you said that to chase her away because you didn't want to hold up this child's future. When O Huijin said that, he kept his eyes on O Ming. Indeed, when he saw O Ming's desolate expression, he knew he was right. The child's temperament was like his. O Huijin had probably thought it through. However, even if it was him, it was impossible for him to say such hurtful words. Just as Yu Lily had said, it would be difficult to salvage the situation in the future. This child really didn't leave any way out for himself. You'll regret it, O Huijin said bluntly. When O Ming heard that, the regret in his heart had already swept over the sky and the earth. Yes, he would regret it. O Ming was already very, very regretful. But, could he regret it? Was there any room for regret now? Yu Lily was still young, only 25 years old. Such a good girl shouldn't spend the rest of her life on a cripple. Even O Ming himself couldn't see a future for him. He couldn't afford to gamble. His head was getting dizzier and dizzier. He felt as if his head was being crushed by something, and his cheeks were hot. But, O Ming didn't dare say it out loud. If he complained that he wasn't feeling well, Xiao Ziqing wouldn't let Yu Lily off. But now, O Ming couldn't help it. His head hurt, and gradually, everything around him seemed to be getting further and further away. Yu Lily took old Mrs. Shen out for dinner. When they returned to the hotel, they saw Shenjilia sitting on the sofa eating beef noodles with a resentful look on his face. When he saw them coming up, he glared at Yu Lily and then continued to eat. He said with jealousy and hatred, You two went out to play without me. You are so mean. Chapter 1171. When Shenjilia heard that, he turned his head away with his bowl of beef noodles in his hands. After Yu Lily sat in the hotel for a while, Shenjilia suggested taking old Mrs. Shen to the nearby park and plaza that were very Kingstown style. As the host, Yu Lily naturally introduced them to a lot of local customs and stories. After walking around, it was not until 2 in the afternoon that everyone felt hungry. After finding a place to eat, they played for the rest of the afternoon. It was not until dark that they returned to the hotel to rest. After dinner, Yu Lily said she had to work and went home after saying goodbye to old Mrs. Shen. Yu Lily took out the key and opened the door. When she entered and saw the familiar furnishings, her originally tense mood suddenly relaxed. Home. Finally home. Although there was no so-called family or relatives in this home, it was the only place in the world where she could find a sense of security. It was good to be back. Yu Lily found herself a set of pajamas and then went into the bathroom. When the hot water sprinkled down from the top of her head, Yu Lily's body relaxed even more. After taking a shower and washing her clothes, Yu Lily applied a facial mask that she was usually reluctant to use. After sticking it on her face, she turned on the digital screen and held a pen to find a way to draw. As she drew, half an hour passed without her knowing it. It was not until the phone alarm rang that Yu Lily suddenly woke up. It was already 10:00 in the evening. It was time to sleep. Yu Lily washed off the mask, then turned off the digital screen and lay on the bed. However, she was not sleepy at all. For the whole day, she felt as if something was hanging in her heart. It was like there was a dry fountain in the middle of an empty square. However, all of a sudden, the water at the bottom of the dried-up fountain suddenly gushed out continuously. Late at night, it was as cold as water. The loneliness buried in the deepest part of the human heart was always the easiest to quietly overflow in the middle of the night when one was alone and silently penetrate into every cell of one's body. Meticulous turbulence was pervasive. Sorrow seeped into the heart and grew clusters of flowers, brightly facing all life, but in fact, no one could know that, in fact, watering this brilliance was actually fragile loneliness. One day, this loneliness would no longer be able to support this brilliance, and it would slowly rot from its roots. Then, it would fall inch by inch, and it would no longer be the same as before. If you don't want me, I'll kill you and then kill myself. Tears fell silently from the corner of her eyes. Yu Lily looked at the ceiling with a calm heart. However, there was an inexplicable sourness and pain. It was just a joke. How could she bear to kill him? There was no way she could do it. It was as if there was a blunt awl hammering deep into his heart, causing him a dull pain. Yu Lily turned over and covered her face with the quilt. The hot and humid feeling quickly covered her face. Breathing became more and more difficult, and Yu Lily was unwilling to raise her head. Her throat became more and more stuffy, and the hot and humid feeling stuck to her face and the quilt. In the end, he couldn't help but raise his head abruptly. Fresh air entered his nose, and the cool air made him feel refreshed. Yu Lily was breathing heavily. She didn't know if it was because of suffocation or something else, but her vision was blurred. He couldn't see anything. Chapter 1172. It was quiet all around. Only the sound of the heartbeat machine could be heard. After some time, there was a commotion all around. Oh Ming frowned. The white light from his glasses stung his eyes. If he doesn't get better, it's hard to say when he will get better, but this situation is not uncommon. He may get better in a few days, or he may not get better for the rest of his life. You family members have to do a good job of counseling the patient. Oh Ming couldn't hear what was said after that. He fell into a deep sleep. When he woke up again, it was still dark. Beep. 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 The heartbeat on the electronic electrocardiogram was steady and rhythmic. Oh Ming's heart suddenly jumped. The electrocardiogram fluctuated, but it quickly returned to normal. Yu Lily was awakened by the doorbell. Yu Lily had no idea when she had fallen asleep the night before. Her phone hadn't been charged the night before. When she went to get it, it was turned off. When she opened the door, it was old Mrs. Shen and Shenjilia. Yu Lily had expected it, so she let them in before going to freshen up. The moment she entered, she realized that her eyes were swollen like 2 walnuts. Those eyes. I can't even look at them. She quickly applied them. She didn't know if it was a psychological effect or if she really felt better. She looked left and right and walked out. Shenjilia and old Mrs. Shen acted as if they hadn't seen her. When they saw her, they suggested, "Lily, there are still a few more days before you start work, right? Do you want to go out with Grandma? Go out with old Mrs. Shen?" Yu Lily didn't think it was appropriate, but when she saw the old lady's expectant gaze, she asked, "Where? How about Fujian? I heard that there are a lot of interesting places in Fujian. Moreover, there are many beautiful women there. Let's ask the youngest to drive us there. Anyway, Kingstown is not far from there. We can chat while taking the car there. We can also find a place with beautiful scenery to have a picnic. What do you think?" Old Mrs. Shen's eyes were filled with anticipation. "I checked. It's only a few hours from Kingstown to Xiamen, and the scenery along the way is great." Yu Lily looked at her expectant eyes and shook her head. "Forget it, Grandma. You should go with Shenjilia. I haven't been in a good mood recently. I'm not in the mood to go out." Old Mrs. Shen refused to give up and said, "Lily, it's precisely because you're in a bad mood that you want to go out and find a way to relax your soul, isn't that right?" "Yes." Shenjilia immediately responded with a serious look on his face. "Let's go together. It's rare for Grandma to come out. No matter how I asked her to come out in the past, she was always at home and didn't even bother to move. This is also the first time for me to come out with Grandma. Let's go." Shenjilia's gaze was sincere, and his eyes were bright and full of expression. It was as if he could see right into her heart. She shook her head and said, "No, Shenjilia, you can go with Grandma. I went to Paris some time ago. I was too busy having fun and didn't have time to finish the draft. Now I have to finish the draft. You can go by yourselves." Shenjilia nodded and said, "No, thanks." After that, no matter how much old Mrs. Shen and Shenjilia tried to persuade her, Yu Lily refused to budge. She was indeed in a very bad mood. Yu Lily had never imagined that in the short span of 2 days, her life would change so drastically. Chapter 1173. After treating old Mrs. Shen and Shenjilia to dinner, Yu Lily found an excuse to return home. What she didn't expect was that just as she walked to the entrance of the community, she saw a familiar figure appear at the entrance of the community. Wen Fenglin stepped out of the taxi. In his hand was a simple handbag. In the palm of his hand was a cell phone. It looked like he was calling someone. When Yu Lily saw Wen Fenglin, she was shocked. What is this person doing here? Is he looking for someone? Does he know someone who lives nearby? Or does he live in this neighborhood? Just as Yu Lily was wondering about this, the cell phone in her pocket began to vibrate. She took a look and saw that the name on the screen was Uncle Wen. Yu Lily answered the call and placed it to her ear. "Uncle Wen. Lass, where are you?" Wen Fenglin asked. Yu Lily took 2 steps forward to the entrance of the neighborhood and replied, "I'm here." When Wen Fenglin heard Yu Lily's voice, he turned his head and looked over. When he saw Yu Lily on the phone, he chuckled. 2 dimples appeared on his cheeks, making him look exceptionally good-looking. Yu Lily hung up the phone at the same time. She looked at Wen Fenglin with some doubt and apprehension in her heart. Wen Fenglin and Xiao Ziqing are good friends. Is he helping Xiao Ziqing to cause trouble for me? As if he could sense Yu Lily's uneasiness, the smile on Wen Fenglin's face widened. Beneath his black-rimmed glasses, his small eyes narrowed as he asked, is there a place nearby for us to sit? He had asked to sit nearby, not at Yu Lily's house. The subtle details made Yu Lily's heart relax a little. She nodded her head and replied, yes. She brought Wen Fenglin to a nearby cafe. Because of the Spring Festival, it was usually a busy time, but there weren't that many people there. Yu Lily chose a quiet corner. They each ordered a drink and sat facing each other. Yu Lily waited for him to speak first. Wen Fenglin looked at Yu Lily and said, I heard that you beat up O Ming yesterday. You were pretty vicious. He was knocked unconscious. Yu Lily was stunned. She looked at Wen Fenglin and tried to find a hint of a joke on his face. But he didn't. It can't be. O Ming is unconscious? Yu Lily's heart was beating wildly. Wen Fenglin nodded his head and replied, O Ming's mother is very upset. I think it's best that you go visit O Ming. He's not in a good state right now. If you can stay by his side, his condition should improve. After all, to O Ming, Yu Lily's status was very, very special. Just like how he was like Xian in the past. Wen Fenglin believed that their relationship was deeper than his and Xian-er's. Yu Lily's hands were under the table, and her palms were tightly twisted together. At this moment it was as if a raging fire had been set ablaze in her heart, causing all the determination in her heart to vanish in an instant. Shall we go and see him? He didn't seem to be in a good state. Uncle Wen's words could be trusted. Yu Lily almost swayed, but then she remembered what O Ming had said to her yesterday. Chapter 1174. Is his condition that bad? The words from the day before were still ringing in her head. Her mind was a mess. She was caught in a dilemma. O Ming's condition isn't good. Is he still unconscious? Judging from Uncle Wen's expression, he doesn't seem to be anxious or nervous. That can't be true, can it? Wen Fenglin looked at her intently and nodded his head. Not very well. He's been unconscious since yesterday. The doctor said that once he wakes up, the condition of his eyes might worsen. In other words, it was very likely that O Ming would never see again. Yu Lily suddenly felt a warm current rush through her. She couldn't stop the tears from welling up in her eyes. When she felt Wen Fenglin's meaningful gaze, Yu Lily felt like he was a prison warden judging a prisoner. Looking at her with such a gaze made her feel very uncomfortable. Yu Lily thought about it and smiled. In a low voice, she said, Uncle Wen, O Ming is blessed by heaven. He'll definitely recover. I hope so. I also hope that he will recover soon. After all, O Ming calls me uncle. Given his current condition, I'm worried for him. Wen Fenglin looked at Yu Lily and continued, the reason why I came to look for you is that I hope that O Ming will regain consciousness sooner. To be honest, O Ming's mother didn't allow me to look for you. She feels that you're the one who caused her son to become like this. The 2 slaps you gave him yesterday only worsened his injuries. Without a doubt, Xiao Ziqing must hate Yu Lily very much. Yu Lily knew that very well. She smiled and said, Uncle Wen, you weren't around yesterday. You might not have understood what he said to me yesterday. I'll remember what O Ming said yesterday. If anything happens to O Ming in the future, I hope that you won't tell me. It's none of my business. Furthermore, she was afraid that after hearing about O Ming's condition, her heart would soften and she wouldn't be able to control herself. You won't be able to let it go. Wen Fenglin's words hit the nail on the head. He looked at Yu Lily with a smile on his face. This child of yours is very similar to someone I used to know. Is that why he's treating me so well? Yu Lily seemed to understand something, but she didn't say a word. The drink that she had ordered was served. Yu Lily didn't touch it. She looked at Wen Fenglin and stood up. Uncle Wen, thank you for coming to tell me today, but I won't be going. I have something to do. I'll head back first. As he spoke, he was already walking out of his seat. His heart felt like it was being clenched tightly. Wen Fenglin looked at Yu Lili in astonishment. Before coming, Wen Fenglin had thought of countless possibilities, but he hadn't expected Yu Lili to reject him outright. Yu Lili's attitude was beyond Wen Fenglin's expectations. What Wen Fenglin hadn't expected was that Yu Lili's actions would earn him a sense of admiration. When he realized this, Wen Fenglin laughed bitterly to himself. "You, Wen," said. You, Wen. Little boy, it's not that I don't want to help you. It's just that you've crossed the line," Wen Fenglin muttered to himself. One of. You. Chapter 1175. Yu Lili was a little embarrassed. She cleared her throat and said, "I haven't finished drawing yet. It's almost time for the update. If I don't rush the draft, I'm afraid the readers will scold me." "You draw as well?" Wen Fenglin was a little surprised. This was the first time he had heard of Yu Lili's occupation. Yu Lili was even more embarrassed. She cleared her throat and tried to act natural, but she couldn't stop her face from heating up. She nodded her head and said, "The nature of my drawing is different from yours. I serialize my comics online." "Impressive." Wen Fenglin's eyes lit up. "Can I take a look at your comics?" Yu Lili was even more embarrassed. "I draw shoujo comics. I can't show them to you, that's alright. Comics are also a form of art. They have a story and are readable. They're much better than antiques like us," Wen Fenglin said with a smile. He immediately changed the topic. "It's fine if you really can't do it. I'm just a little curious." Oops, Yu Lili had a good impression of Wen Fenglin. Since the elders had already spoken so clearly, it wouldn't be right for her to turn them down again. She thought about it and took out her phone. She opened the Eurasian Comics app and found her work. She opened it and said, "This is what I drew." Wen Fenglin took it from her and flipped through it a few times. Yu Lili couldn't see Wen Fenglin's expression. She stood there awkwardly. This was the first time someone she knew had asked her about her work. It was also the first time someone she knew was looking at her comics. Yu Lili had a strange feeling about it. Yu Lili's hair stood on end. She asked, "Isn't it a little childish?" "No, it's very well drawn." Wen Fenglin looked at the drawing style. "It's different from the comics I've seen in the past. Yours is more realistic. Why does this male lead look so familiar?" The male lead in the drawing was wearing a burgundy suit. His short black hair was the most popular hairstyle of the day. The male lead on the screen was holding a champagne glass. He was squinting his eyes and looking ahead. His features were well defined, and he looked very handsome. However, compared to other comics, Yu Lili's drawing was more realistic. The character in the painting was based on Ming, so of course he looked familiar. Yu Lili laughed dryly. Just as she was about to say something, she realized that Wen Fenglin had flipped to the page and looked at the title. Love Transaction? The main storyline of the comic was based on Yu Lili's own life. When the title was read, Yu Lili's heart skipped a beat. She quickly snatched her phone back. When she met Wen Fenglin's gaze, she felt a little uneasy. Wen Fenglin merely smiled and replied, "I've seen this comic before. It's ranked at the top of the national comic rankings. It's very popular. Someone introduced this comic to me in the hopes that I would give it a chance to promote it. I haven't had the time to check it out." "I didn't expect the artist to be you." Yu Lili was stunned. She was secretly shocked by Wen Fenglin's words. So, the Eurasian comic had actually gotten Wen Fenglin to recommend it? Wen Fenglin's reputation in the country was not to be underestimated. If Wen Fenglin was the one to promote her, the effect would be. Chapter 1176. Cross-border publicity was bound to have an unimaginable effect on comics. But for the artist himself, there was no benefit. Moreover, such a thing was also a thankless task for the Eurasian comics. The only people who would benefit from it would be the comics and the artist. The more Yu Lily thought about it, the more she realized something. It was Ming. Eurasian Comics was his company. He must have known about her work and her career. Ming must have gotten his men to help her with the publicity. That way, once Yu Lily's reputation was established, her future would be smooth sailing. But, something like this had happened to Ming. Wait a minute. If Ming was willing to do that for me, then he must be serious about me, right? Yu Lily didn't believe that it was simply because I was his girlfriend or a mistress. If he was sincere, then why did he say those things the day before? It wasn't just the day before. It was the last time, and the time before that. Yu Lily felt that she didn't understand him. In other words, she had never understood this man before. This man's mood swings were unpredictable. All along, he had been overbearing and arrogant. He never explained what he was thinking, and no one could understand him. Uncle Wen, when did I get you to do the publicity for me? Probably last month. I was in Fujian at the time, and the people from Eurasian Comics came to talk to me. Yu Lily nodded her head. The fire that had been burning in her heart slowly died down. Times had changed. The Ming now was no longer the Ming of last month. Yu Lily smiled at Wen Fenglin and nodded her head. I see. Uncle Wen, please sit here for a while. I'll go up to rush the draft. A serialized drawing can't be delayed for too long. Otherwise, it'll lose popularity. All right. Go ahead. Wen Fenglin nodded his head. Yu Lily turned around and left. When Yu Lily got home, she held the stylus for a long time. Her mind was a mess. Sometimes it was Wen Fenglin's words, and sometimes it was old Mrs. Shen's. Sometimes it was Ming's and Xiao Ziqing's voices. Frustration. Ming isn't in a good state. Not in a good state? How bad is that? The people from Eurasian Comics came to me to talk to me. It was hard to estimate the amount of funds and costs required to hire such an artist for publicity. Such a man who treated her like this. Yu Lily's hand holding the pen slightly shrank, and she imagined Ming's current posture. What did he look like now? Suddenly, his cell phone rang. The sudden tremor made Yu Lily's heart skip a beat. The stylus fell to the ground with a clatter. The caller ID showed, Old Madam Shen. After Yu Lily calmed down a little, she answered the phone. Old Mrs. Shen was just bored, so she called to nag. Yu Lily chatted with her for a while before hanging up. However, after hanging up the phone, the desire to see Ming in her heart became even stronger. She wanted to see him, to see him. She wanted to see him. Lost love, found again. Chapter 1177. Coincidentally, Wen Fenglin had a few documents and other matters to attend to. He sat in the shop for a while. When he was done, he stood up to leave. As soon as he stepped out of the shop, he saw Yu Lily standing at the entrance of the estate, waiting for a taxi. A taxi was coming her way. Yu Lily quickly stopped it and got in. Wen Fenglin looked at her and knew where she was going. Watching the taxi from afar, Wen Fenglin couldn't help but laugh. What a hypocrite. She was just like her. Wen Fenglin's eyes darkened as he thought of the woman in his memories. By the time Yu Lily reached the hospital in a taxi, it was already half an hour later. On the 5th day of the Lunar New Year, there were fewer people at the hospital than usual. Ming was considered half a public figure. If she asked directly, the receptionist wouldn't tell her where Ming was. Yu Lily went in and walked to the VIP ward area with ease. The family had a habit, nostalgia. They would probably still be staying in room V8. As Yu Lily walked in that direction, she decided to take a gamble. She didn't expect to see Oh Ming's ward when she got closer. However, as soon as he got closer, he heard voices coming from inside. That woman is so evil. Not only did she hurt you like this, she even hit you yesterday. Xiao Ziqing's voice was sobbing. She sounded sad and full of hatred. Xiao Ziqing had never had a good impression of Yu Lily. Especially after Yu Lily had hit her son the day before, Xiao Ziqing felt that the woman was despicable. She has ulterior motives and deserves to be punished. When Yu Lily heard Xiao Ziqing's voice from outside, she stopped in her tracks and stood at the door. Oh Ming didn't say a word. Xiao Ziqing continued, I don't care if what you said yesterday was true or false. Since you broke up with her, it's best if you don't contact her again. I've already listened to you and blacklisted her number on your phone. I've also deleted the speed dial. From now on, just pretend that this woman never appeared. I've already listened to you. Did Oh Ming ask Xiao Ziqing to do that? It turned out that Oh Ming was not only like this in front of her, but also in front of his mother. A blind person who couldn't see anything let others put her number into the blacklist. In that case, she would never be able to contact him again. It was impossible for a blind person to pull her number out of the blacklist. As for the others, it was even more impossible for them to help him pull it out. Yu Lily stood at the door and felt like a fool. Yu Lily's heart ached, and her original idea of going in disappeared. She didn't want to go in anymore. However, at the same time as she turned around, a low voice came from inside. It was muffled, but it seemed to reach into her heart. Yes. It was Oh Ming. Yu Lily's heart was like a wisp of dry straw floating on a charcoal fire. When it came into contact with the fire, it instantly burned into ashes and scattered. It seemed that Xiao Ziqing really hated him. Since ancient times, it was impossible to be loyal and filial at the same time. Chapter 1178. At that moment, she felt like a drowning dog. She couldn't describe how miserable she was. She wasn't in front of them, but the feeling was as strong as ever. She walked away faster and faster. She lowered her head and didn't even dare to look back. She walked away quickly. In the ward, Xiao Ziqing was surprised by Oh Ming's answer. She asked, Really? You promised me? Oh Ming's eyes were empty, and he looked ahead without any focus. At first glance, they looked like the eyes of those imitation dolls. You're my mother. I'll do whatever you say. Anyway, I don't have the slightest choice in front of you, do I? Oh Ming stared blankly ahead, and a bitter smile hung on his lips. He looked a little helpless, but at the same time, everyone could clearly feel that he was sad. Xiao Ziqing was taken aback when she heard this. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. After a moment of silence, Xiao Ziqing asked, Are you still blaming me? You are my mother. I dare not blame you, Oh Ming said. However, when these words were heard by others, it was even more chilling. Xiao Ziqing's heart skipped a beat. She looked at Oh Ming and said earnestly, Mom is doing this for your own good. What's so good about that woman? Why do you insist on having her? Do you want her to kill you before you can give up? You are my son. I will never harm you. Yes, it was all for his own good. She was his mother. How could she deliberately harm him? But it was this kind of love and kindness that made his head hurt. They were all doing this for his own good. Why should he not listen? They were all doing this for his own good, so his own choice would also be completely taken away, not even leaving a single shred of it. Everything was for the sake of that honorable banner, it was for his own good. The bitter smile on Oh Ming's face widened, and he said, I know. Anyway, I'm blind now, and I don't want to hold her back. It's good to let her go. If we break up, she can find someone better. There is more than one man in the world. But in this world, there was only one Yu Lily. Oh Ming lay down, pulled up the quilt, and lay on his side. When Xiao Ziqing heard this, she felt that Oh Ming was even more stubborn. Looking at Oh Ming lying on the bed, she was so angry that she stomped her feet. At the same time, she was so distressed that she didn't know what to say. Looking at her son for a long time, Xiao Ziqing actually didn't know whether what she was doing was right or wrong. Xiao Ziqing stood in place for a long time before she finally gritted her teeth and said, "One day, you'll understand my good intentions. You're not the only man in this world, but you're my only son. I can't let her kill you." This woman was not a kind person. She had evil intentions. After Xiao Ziqing finished speaking, she was even more certain of her thoughts. She stomped her feet, turned around, and left. Oh Ming listened as the footsteps faded away and opened his eyes. In front of him, it was as if Yu Lily, dressed in red and smiling like a flower, appeared. Today was the 5th day of the Lunar New Year. 25 years ago today, Kingstown welcomed its rare winter. 25 years ago, it was snowing in Kingstown, a rare occurrence in 100 years. The kind director of the orphanage saved a newborn baby girl and named her Yu Lily. Chapter 1179. Yu Lily walked like a zombie. When she took a taxi home, she was called out by the taxi driver. She paid the fare and went upstairs. When she got out of the elevator, she started to look for the key. She had only been away for a day, but she was very attached to this place. It was just a shared house, but it was the only place in the world that she could call home. She entered the password and took out the key to open the door. It was dark inside. Yu Lily followed her memory and touched the switch. When she was about to open it, there was a sudden movement inside. The sound of high heels came from inside, and Yu Lily's heart was alarmed, but at the same time, full of surprise, and a familiar voice suddenly shouted, "Surprise!" A few familiar voices mixed together, sounding very excited. Among them, the most excited voice was undoubtedly old Mrs. Shen. The chandelier in the living room was turned on, and there were many balloons in the living room. Everyone was wearing a hat on their head. It looked very lovely and festive. Old Mrs. Shen walked toward Yu Lily with a heart-shaped balloon in her hands and shouted, "Lily, why are you back so soon? We are not fully prepared." Yu Lily was stunned when she saw the scene. In front of her, not only was old Mrs. Shen, but also Shenjilia, Yi Qianqian, Yi Yuyu, and a few colleagues who were good friends with her in the company. They were all here. "Don't you go to work on the 8th day of the new year? Today is only the 5th. Yu Lily's first reaction was to blurt out. Yi Qianqian and a few colleagues came forward and helped her to sit on the sofa. Yi Qianqian said, "Yes, but I came back early. Today is your birthday. We discussed it a long time ago to give you a surprise. How is it? Are you surprised by your sister's surprise?" Yu Lily looked at them in a daze. Everything around her, including the big cake box on the coffee table, and the colleagues and friends around her, all looked very happy. His originally ice-cold heart felt as if it had been injected with a warm current in an instant. Yu Lily looked at Yi Qianqian's big smile in front of her, and tears welled up in her eyes. Very quickly, she held back the tears and smiled at them with a big smile. "Didn't I waste your vacation? I won't compensate you for your losses." Yi Qianqian took out a hat and put it on her head. She glared at her and said, "If you don't compensate me, I'm still hoping that you'll take us on a vacation. You want to travel?" "Yeah, I heard all about it." "Did you really break up with Oh Ming?" Yi Qianqian leaned over and whispered. Yu Lily was stunned when she heard that. When Yi Qianqian saw the expression on Yu Lily's face, she knew she was right. Before Yu Lily could react, she immediately said, "Well done. You shouldn't miss something like that. Look at Shenjilia. He's handsome, rich, and a psychiatrist. His mental fortitude is impeccable. Why would he give up a field of flowers for a pile of cow dung? Yu Lily's eyes widened. Yi Qianqian's metaphor was not polite at all. Yu Lily's lips twitched. This was the first time she had heard someone compare Ming to cow dung. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.